All right, so we'll talk NBA Finals, Spurs and the Miami Heat in the 2013 edition. And, of course, Floyd Mayweather signs to fight a very tough opponent in the fall. That and much, much more. But first, we're going to bring on our first guest. And, folks, I've done thousands of interviews some of the biggest and best names in sports, from Pete Rose and Roy Jones Jr., Kurt Schilling. And it's only been a few times that I've said the word honor or privilege. And this gentleman coming up next fits that bill. He is one of the best boxing announcers, sports announcers of all time. Proud, privilege, and pleasure to bring on Mr. Barry Tompkins. Mr. Tompkins, welcome to Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's really nice to be with you. It's very, very high praise.
Well, you certainly deserve it. Again, a legendary career. And let's get right into it, because you've done some of the best and famous boxing fights of all time. But I want to talk about one that never technically happened, a fictitious one. And that, of course, is Rocky Balboa versus Ivan Drago. You were the voice behind that one. First of all, what was it like to be part of a movie that grossed over $120 million? And President Reagan said that it ended the Cold War. So you were part of that. What was that like?
Yeah, so I really feel very involved in ending the Cold War. It was a really interesting experience, because, I mean, obviously I'm so used to doing live television, that to do a movie where it literally took 2 weeks to do that one 18-minute scene of that particular fight, it was really something completely out of character for me. So it was interesting in that regard. But to be really honest with you, doing so many years of live television where the red light goes on, you start talking, and the red light goes off, you say goodnight. It was boring, really boring, because it's all like a dance. It's all choreographed, and I remember thinking to myself, first of all, it was supposed to be winter in Moscow, and it was the summer in Vancouver, Washington, or Vancouver, BC, I beg your pardon. And so that in itself, it was the movies. We always say that, there's no such thing as reality in television, but there's really no such thing as reality in movies.
All right. Now, I'm curious, in the script itself, did Stallone come to you and say, I wrote the script and this is in stone, you have to say it like this? Or did he say, we're going to do this choreographed dance, say whatever comes to your mind, just like you were broadcasting a real fight? How did that work technically?
Well, it's a truth teller. I was really impressed with Stallone, just in how he handles things and how he's aware of everything that's going on. And no, what he said to me, there was a script, but what he said to me was, he said, do what you do, just go 20% over the top of what you would normally do.
Okay.
So in other words, if you would be getting excited at, any particular event in any fight that I've ever done, he said, go 20% over the top of that, And he said, as long as you're consistent with that, that's cool. And we actually did it. As I said, it was 2 weeks to do that one scene, but we did my whole thing in really one take, 2.5, maybe 2 takes. But and that was it, So of those 2 weeks that we spent in Vancouver, I'd say that I spent a lot of time on camera, but I probably only spent about an hour and a half actually speaking.
And one last question about this fictitious fight, then we'll move on to actual fights, I promise. I have to know, my sources told me that the fight between Stallone and, of course, Dolph Lundgren, who plays Ivan Drago, was about 80 to 90% real. Is that accurate? I heard Stallone doesn't like stunt doubles. He took the punches himself. He threw the punches himself. Is that an accurate estimation?
Yeah, it is accurate, actually. Not so much for Stallone hitting Lundgren, but for Lundgren hitting Stallone.
Wow. Okay.
That's very accurate. I mean, the thing that is interesting is that Dolph Lundgren he's probably, I would say 6'6" and maybe 260, 65 pounds, I would say. And Sylvester Stallone is 5'10" and 160.
Right.
So, what you really had there was a total mismatch.
Yeah, of course.
But they shoot it at an angle that it never looks like there's that big a height difference, or size difference in general. So, I tell you, what he does really well, and he found a formula that worked, and I have nothing but admiration for the guy. I mean, the way he handles the whole thing it's absolutely brilliant. It really is.
We're speaking with legendary broadcaster Barry Tompkins here on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. Segueing from Rocky to real boxing, I'm going to segue into Sugar Ray Leonard, because both Rocky and Sugar Ray Leonard love to retire and then come back from retirement. They both did it about 5 or 6 times to my latest count.
Yeah.
You worked with Sugar Ray many, many times. The first time he retired at 25 years old, was there something inside of you that said, I think he's coming back, I don't buy this retirement? What were your thoughts at the time?
Absolutely, the first time. We worked together for 10 years, and we became really close, and still are actually to this day. he's like a little brother to me. But the first time I didn't have any doubt that he was going to come back, And in fact, interesting story with that is he came back and he fought a guy by the name of Kevin Howard.
Right.
And I went home with him after that fight. I did that fight. It was in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I went back home to his house with him after that fight, and he was so sore I literally had to help him up the steps of his house. And he won the fight. He knocked Howard out. So, it just is an idea of how brutal a sport this is. So, to really answer your question, the first time I knew he was going to come back. The last couple of times, I really didn't think he would. In fact, I never really thought that he would come back and fight Marvin Hagler. That was one that I never thought would happen. But, I asked. He had a guy that always traveled with him, was very close with him, named Ollie Dunlop.
Right.
And Ollie was kind of his alter ego and a very good friend of mine. He actually grew up in San Francisco with me. And anyway, I remember talking to Ollie about it. And I said, why is he doing this? The Ollie always called him the little guy. He said, why is the little guy doing this? And Ollie's answer was, fighters fight.
Right.
And I think that's the only logical answer I can give you. It doesn't make sense, and I know that, but that's what a fighter is, and I've seen it countless times, and that's the way it was with Sugar Ray Leonard, too.
You've seen it time and time again in boxing time. Muhammad Ali fought well past his prime, well past he should have. He fought when he was 39 years old against Trevor Berbick, and you see this time and time again. I want to go, though, first, speaking of Sugar Ray Leonard, you talked about working with him. Many times with boxing, you have a guy who calls the fight, and then the former boxer, Howard Cosell worked with Ali and Ken Norton, and Jim Lampley worked with George Foreman. What was Sugar Ray like to work with? He is more than just an athlete. He just is so well-spoken, knowledgeable. What was it like to call fights with Sugar Ray Leonard?
Well, what was really interesting? It was more interesting, to be very honest with you. It was more interesting just being at the fights with him than it was actually being on the air with him. Unfortunately, what happened to Ray on the air, he was a great student of the game. And there are not a lot of fighters, quite frankly, who are great students of the game. He was one. And we would be sitting here watching fights, preliminary fights, before we went on the air. And he would say, you see how he's kind of turned his shoulder that way? And he's right there for a counter left hand. And like 30 seconds later, he'd get hit with a counter left hand. It was uncanny how much he knew. Unfortunately, sometimes what happens in television, as I'm sure you know, being in broadcasting, you can get overproduced. And I think that's what happened with Ray Leonard. I think the producer of the show at that time kept telling Ray, say this, say that, tell him this, tell him that. And quite frankly, Ray stopped thinking. He just was sitting there waiting for the producer to tell him what to say. And so I don't think he ever really was able to bring to the dance what he really knew. And I can tell you for a fact, he knew more than anybody I've ever been around.
Again, Sugar Ray Leonard, clearly a guy above boxing, made $100 million in purses. And you're right, sometimes just like as an athlete, you want them to do things on instinct, not think too much. Same in the broadcasting game, correct?
Right. Well, our business is a very different business than the business of boxing or the business of playing football or any other business that you can think of. The analogy I always use is just because, I know how to do a broadcast, I can't go out and play quarterback on a football team or throw a left hook.
Exactly.
I've never been in a fight in my life.
Right.
So, the same analogy holds true for the fighters. I don't think they can make that transition without somebody saying, here's how you do television or here's how you do radio, And unfortunately, I think too many of these guys get funked into that role.
Now, a fight that Sugar Ray was ringside with you broadcasting, 1985, marvelous Marvin Hagler versus the Hitman Tommy Hearns. In the first round, about halfway through, you say this is still the first round because it was such intense action. Many people have said it's the greatest round of all time, and also many have said it's the greatest fight of all time. What were your thoughts? Was the first round the greatest round we've seen in the history of boxing?
Well, I think I actually said on the air that in that fight that it was the greatest round of boxing I'd ever seen, and it was. It was, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was just terrific. So, but I wouldn't call it the greatest fight by any means because really for Hearns the fight was over in the first round.
Right, broke his hand.
He just went out there and gave it everything he had, and it wasn't enough. And then Hagler took care of him just a couple of rounds later.
Now, as I mentioned, in the first round, you have a lot of great catchphrases, as you do in several fights, things like, this is still the first round. When Mike Tyson knocked out Trevor Berbick, you said, and we have a new era in boxing. And I've always wanted to know, because your voice has been the soundtrack of so many great moments in boxing, Did you think of it the night before or driving to the arena thinking, I think Tyson's going to win, and when he wins, I'm going to say this, or does it just come to you and you just go with the flow, as they like to say?
No, I wish I was that smart. I've never been able to do that. I've never been able to pre-plan. There are guys who do that,
Right.
I've never been able to do that. I've never been able to do, if this happens, then I'll say this. If that happens, then I'll say that. Never, those things. In fact, it's funny because people remind me of those lines every now and then, and honestly, to this day, I don't even remember saying them. So no, really, I mean that one I do. But there were, others in other fights that people will quote from a particular fight, and honestly, I don't even remember it.
Now, in that fight, Tyson knocked down then champion Trevor Berbick basically 3 times with one punch. I've never seen that before or since. Have you ever seen a guy fall down? He got up and fell, got up and fell 3 times for one punch. Have you ever seen anything like that since or before?
No, I never have. I never have. In fact, what I said about that fight is he's the only guy in the world I ever saw have to go to a neutral corner to fall down. But no, I never have. I saw John Tate get hit like that in the Olympic Games against Teofilo Stevenson. That's the closest I could ever remember somebody just, starting to go down and catching themselves and staggering some more and then finally going down. But those are the only 2 times.
All right, and going back to Sugar Ray Leonard, most people said that his best win, according to Sugar Ray Leonard himself, was the fight against Tommy Hearns, and that is one of my favorite fights to watch. Many times I'll just go to YouTube and watch it over and over. In the 14th, again, since you were familiar with Ray and Hearns, did you think he was going to pull that out? He was down so much by points. Hearns just had to stay on his feet, and he would have been the champion. Did you think somehow, some way, Ray was going to dig down deep and pull out the knockout?
No, honestly, I didn't. I really thought, he had Hearns down, he had him hurt, he had the fight won, then he let it kind of slip away, and I really didn't think he could come back from that. But that just shows you, they talk about in racing, horse racing, they talk about the heart. That a horse has to have great heart, and I guess you can make that same statement, about Ray Leonard in boxing and a lot of other great athletes too. Great athletes have big hearts, and he was able to suck it up and come back and win.
Again, we're speaking with legendary broadcaster Mr. Barry Tompkins. And when I was watching growing up in sports, there were guys I looked up to Howard Cosell, looked up to Jim Lampley, looked up to Marv Albert, Bob Costas, looked up to yourself. Who were the guys that you looked up to growing up as a kid and said, I want to broadcast just like him and I want to follow in his footsteps?
Well, I don't know because I never really aspired much to it, to tell you the truth. My background is as a writer, and I never really thought about being in front of a camera, to tell you the truth. So even though there were people that I grew up with, I grew up with the Kurt Gowdys and Chris Schenkels and people like that. Dick Enberg, who I've always put up there still to this day as a consummate professional, and Don Dumphy in boxing. When I was a kid, I used to listen to Don Dumphy do boxing on the radio, and that really was, that's where that's where my background was, and that's what I grew up watching. So in terms of boxing, I'd have to say Don Dumphy. And of course, the real irony about the whole thing is I wound up replacing him at HBO.
Right. That does happen, obviously, from time to time. You end up following someone, and then you can take their position. And also, again, you're not, as they say, the one-trick pony. You've done many different sports, college football, and different types of sports. Is still boxing your favorite because it's just kind of, you're more famous for that than any other sport, or just you love being part of the sporting action and broadcasting any game, whether it's college football, boxing, whatever, what may have you?
Well, people ask that question all the time, and I always say, "What my favorite sport is a sport I happen to be doing at the time." But the truth of the matter is, there's really nothing like a big fight.
Right.
We had one with Mayweather just a couple of months ago, and now there's going to be another one in September. There's really no event in sports that's like that. That where there's all that anticipation and so many weeks of talking about it, and then when the fighters first make their appearance, the crowd reaction is palpable. And I don't really know that there's anything like that in any sport. So, I'd have to say in that regard, boxing is really my favorite sport to do. Plus, I just like the people around it, to be honest with you. I love the fighters. They're really interesting guys. You ask them a question, they look you in the eye and they answer your question, and the trainers and people like that are really interesting people. I mean, where it gets ugly is at the level of the promoters,
Yeah.
That's a different breed of cat altogether. But it's it's very Damon Runyon-esque. There's great characters in boxing, and I think that makes for really a rich fabric in the sport.
And speaking of characters, one of the funniest things, I'm a big fan of the Legendary Night series, and of course, you're on several episodes because you were the voice behind many of those big fights. You go to early 80s, the champion, Larry Holmes, very underrated champion, taking on Jerry Cooney, and you had a great quote regarding the Rappaport twins. I don't know if you remember, but you told a story that whenever you spoke to the Rappaport twins, when they left, you would check your pockets to make sure they didn't take your money. It was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Is that true, though, about the Rappaport twins, that there was something just a little weird about them?
Yeah, and one of them is still around. In fact, we just saw them not terribly long ago, and they've mellowed with age. They really have. But yeah, they had a hot product, and they knew they had a hot product, and they did a lot of things that I'm sure if you asked them about it to this day, they would say they weren't too proud about some of the things, especially with that particular fight, because they turned that fight into a racial issue,
right?
And it really wasn't, at least not between the fighters. Both those guys were terrific guys, and to this day are very good friends, incidentally.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, I think there's certain bounds that you can go, as a fight promoter, and I don't think you go beyond those bounds. And I think in some cases they might have gone beyond the bounds. Now,
especially, I believe it was after the 8th or the 9th round, one of the Rappaport twins went to Cooney and said, "Come on, step it up. America needs you." And that was there were a lot of weird things to that fight. Apparently, Ronald Reagan had a phone set up in Cooney's corner, not in Holmes. Everyone dressed in Irish who was working in the arena in Las Vegas in honor of Cooney. Cooney was introduced first, even though he was the challenger. Have you ever seen that in a big title fight?
Well, the challenger usually does get introduced first. So.
I'm sorry.
That was.
I'm sorry. Back up. He was introduced last. I'm sorry. He was introduced last. They introduced Holmes first. I apologize.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Just the way that whole fight evolved, the weigh-in was the most volatile I can remember being around in all the years I've been doing this sport. I mean, it was ugly, and you just kind of expect. How sometimes you walk into a room, you can feel people taking sides. That's the way that weigh-in was. And it was ugly. Everything about that was ugly. Everything about the promotion was ugly. Everything about the fight, leading up to the fight was ugly. And the truth of the matter is, Larry Holmes was a terrific guy. He's one of my favorite guys. He just never had a shut-off valve, And sometimes he'd get talking in a post-fight interview, and there'd still be all that emotion involved, and he wouldn't know when to stop.
Right.
He just, he could never end a sentence. And I think, that hurt him in the public eye. But he was and is a really terrific guy. Always have liked him. I feel that way about both.
And Holmes, of course, one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time, very underrated, partly because he was the champion after Muhammad Ali. Didn't have a dazzling style, but you talk about a guy who had the second longest reign as heavyweight champion after Joe Louis. So a tremendous fighter. I bring him up partly because boxing is not what it used to be. That is pretty clear. And I think a big part of it is the heavyweight champion is not so clearly defined or recognized as it was with even Lennox Lewis 10 years ago and Mike Tyson and Holmes and Ali and so on. Do you feel that boxing will somehow come back, that it goes up and down, we're in a downswing, we'll go back up, or do you kind of feel it's get a dip and mixed martial arts will take over and be more of a popular sport than boxing?
Well, I think it's in a renaissance right now, to tell you the truth. There are a lot of attractive fights out there. I think this Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather fight is going to really do a lot for the sport. But I think what's happened, too, is I think for a time boxing felt that it was really competitive or needed to be competitive with MMA. And I think now what's happened is they're different sports. They attract different audiences. They both can coexist. And I think that's smart on the part of both organizations, both MMA and of boxing. And I think boxing really is on an uptick right now. It's not on an uptick in the heavyweight division because there hasn't been, an American heavyweight or any semblance of the American heavyweight, really making any noise, for a long, long time. But there's a lot of attractive divisions in boxing. We're doing a lot of them here on Showtime. In fact, I'm with my crew in a car going to the Boxing Hall of Fame right now, and we have a fight tomorrow night. And I think that the 154-pound division, for instance, Floyd Mayweather and Canelo Alvarez, and Mayweather, of course, could go to 47 too. Has fought at 47. That's a good division. The 140-pound division is a terrific division, and a lot of these lighter weights, 122, 126, that's where the interest in boxing is going to be. I don't think we're ever going to have, the great and only heavyweight champion. I'm not sure we're going to see another Muhammad Ali or Joe Louis or, pick your favorite. I just think boxing is going to be. It's going to have to start to recognize itself as a sport for all weight divisions. It's not just about the heavyweight division anymore.
All right, and again, we really appreciate your time, and a tremendous luck to you on the fight you broadcast tomorrow. I will leave you with one last question. We've circled around and danced around Sugar Ray Leonard, and I have to end with this question. Who won in 1987, Hagler or Sugar Ray Leonard?
I had Sugar Ray Leonard winning it, and not because we worked together and not because we were friends. I thought he stole the fight. Now, I absolutely can see how people would think Hagler won the fight. It makes perfect sense to me, and I won't argue with it. I can just tell you how I saw it, and, I have many friends who saw it the way I did, and I have many other knowledgeable friends who saw it the other way. So that debate will go on. I won't be around when that debate still continues.
Yeah, again, as the Richard Steele said, the referee of that fight, every time you watch that fight, it gets closer and closer and closer. So great fight, and, of course, for the fans who haven't researched that fight, Marvin Hagler was so angry about the decision, he retired and gave up millions of dollars because he was just so disgusted. Sugar Ray Leonard fought a couple more times and made a few more $1 million, so that worked out pretty good for him. And also, I encourage everyone to check out Legendary Nights. If you haven't, you'll see Mr. Barry Tompkins on several episodes. It's really one of my favorites. Mr. Tompkins, again, truly an honor, truly a privilege. Enjoy broadcasting the fight tomorrow, and thank you so much for being on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
I really appreciate it, Ari. Anytime at all, always happy to do it.
Thank you so much. Be well. We will speak with you soon.
Okay, thanks much.
All right. That was Mr. Barry Tompkins. What a tremendous honor, privilege. I'm jacked. I'm excited. I was a little nervous doing that. I got to tell you, it's not too often you get a legendary broadcaster like that to speak so candidly about boxing. Great stuff. Okay, here's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to have some news we're going to discuss, and then we will bring on 4 great guests from midnight locally till 2 in the morning. I'm here until 2 in the morning, broadcasting to you good people. This is Louis Live, and this is Israel Sports Radio. A reminder to check out our store. Now, if you go to IsraelSportsRadio.com and click on the store tab, you will see great items such as T-shirts, hats, books, and much, much more. A lot of good stuff there, so check it out. And you can see that if you're listening to this on Justin TV. Again, go to IsraelSportsRadio.com to find out more about that. We're going to have some news on the other side and a bit of a breakdown of the NBA Finals just by yours truly before we bring on some guests to talk about that. We will have on Ari Bluestein and Joe Robbins to discuss the NBA Finals. But right now it's a commercial break. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook, Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook, Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. Again, so much thanks to Mr. Barry Tompkins for coming on, the living legend that is Barry Tompkins. And we will talk more boxing throughout the program. We'll also, of course, talk about the NBA Finals. Game 1 is tonight. That is 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you're watching here in Israel, that is 4 in the morning. The Miami Heat take on the San Antonio Spurs. LeBron James trying to win his second title in a row. 4-time MVP winner could really put somewhat of a stamp on his legacy. Obviously has a long way to go. He's not even 30 years old. But 2 titles certainly will separate him from the pack of the great ones that only won 1, or the great ones who never won any, like Patrick Ewing and, of course, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, etc. People that have won 2 titles, you're now going in the range of Isaiah Thomas and company, and again, certainly will stamp more of his legacy if he can get that second title and another NBA Finals MVP. Just an interesting story before we go to another commercial break. If you recall, 2003, it's 10 years ago, the Nets were in the finals against the San Antonio Spurs. And after that season, the Spurs actively tried to get Jason Kidd, who was a free agent at the time, even though the Spurs had young point guard Tony Parker, who was 21 years old at the time. But the thinking was that Jason Kidd would be an upgrade, and he certainly would be. The year before, he almost won the MVP. He was second place to Tim Duncan. And the idea that Kidd and Duncan and that core of Manu Ginobili and company would win a couple of titles. They didn't get Kidd. Kidd stayed in New Jersey. And just recently he retired, interestingly enough, with this all coming full circle. Spurs stuck with Tony Parker. Since then, they've won 2 more titles, 2005, 2007. In 2007, Parker was the NBA Finals MVP, and now they're back in the NBA Finals. And Parker, again, 2 titles, MVP of the NBA Finals in 2007. Kidd never won a title or went to the NBA Finals. Or excuse me, he did, I apologize, he did win with the Dallas Mavericks, but was not the same. He wasn't a leader, never won an NBA Finals MVP the way Tony Parker did. So it looked like that worked out pretty good for the San Antonio Spurs, that they kept the little French guy and did great things. It's interesting if this is the Spurs' last go-around, because people have thought for years, including yours truly, that they were done. They were too old. Duncan is 37 years old. The team, Manu Ginobili had a great line. He said, 6 years ago when we were last in the NBA Finals, people kept saying then we were old, and now it's getting old. So cute line for Manu. And at some point it will end, but it's kind of like with Mariano Rivera. You thought 10 years ago that he was done, and he keeps going and going and going. So you can't exactly write off the Spurs. I mean, the Spurs, first of all, you can't write them off in this series. But even beyond that, it might not be their last go-around. We don't know what's going to happen with Westbrook and that injury with the Thunder. We don't know what's going to happen with Kobe Bryant, if Kobe will be the same after the injury and the Lakers will be the same. So the Spurs could be one of the top dogs again in the West next season. And despite Duncan's age, he's had a tremendous season. Not an MVP season, not like the 2 MVPs. He's not the star of the team anymore. He is probably 3rd or the 4th best guy. The Spurs also are very, very balanced. Keep that in mind. If you want to talk about who is the better team or not, obviously the Heat have the best player on the court, and they have the best star, and they might even have the 2 best players. Who knows? If you want to argue Dwayne Wade is better than Tony Parker, I'd rather have Tony Parker personally. But the idea is that you could say that top-heavy, the Heat are better. Spurs, though, have a huge, huge balance. But in regards to Tim Duncan, again, 37 years old. He is still, this season, this will shock you, he was 3rd in blocks. He was 3rd in blocks at 2.7. Ibaka, of course, the leader with 3 blocks. But, again, that just tells you where Duncan is. Just incredible when you think about it. Rebound's not the same as he once was, but again, a defensive force. And even though he's getting those blocks, you might say, well, it's only about 3 blocks. What's the big deal? But he alters shots. And that's something you cannot really even put a stat on. You can't literally say this guy moved this way because of that particular player. But it does happen all the time. Duncan also has about 10 rebounds a game. So 37 years old and still has about 10 rebounds. So that's not bad. That's certainly not bad. 10 rebounds, by the way, puts him in the top 10. So at 37 years old, he is doing pretty good stuff there. So don't think the Spurs are necessarily out of it. I do think, I will elaborate on the prediction later. I'm not saying the Spurs are going to win. I'm not saying they're not, but you'll have to find out later. But don't write them off. Will this be the most competitive NBA Finals of all time? I mean, who knows? Wait till the ball goes on the court. It will go on tonight. But for those of you who think the Spurs are too old, you're mistaken. Again, a very, very balanced team. We'll talk more in detail about that with Ari Bluestein and Joe Robbins. What we're going to do right now is take a commercial break, and on the other side, we're going to have a very, very special guest. We're going to bring on a gentleman. There's a great boxing network on there. Again, this is somewhat of a boxing-themed episode. So I wanted to bring on someone from Go Fight Live and GFL.TV. So you can find out more about that. We'll talk about that with our next guest, and that is Richard Quinones. He'll come on in a few minutes. We'll talk the Floyd signing. Floyd with a big fight coming up in the fall. Very, very excited about that as a boxing fan. So that's on the other side. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook, Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed frequent flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. A tremendous show so far. A tremendous start. Again, the legendary Barry Tompkins. And we discussed the NBA Finals somewhat as well. The next hour is going to be boxing themed, and then the second hour of the program, the second last hour, I should really say, the second hour, but will be more about the NBA Finals. NBA Finals kicks off tonight. Of course, the San Antonio Spurs will try to get their first title in 6 years against the defending NBA champion Miami Heat. LeBron goes for title number 2 and probably NBA Finals MVP number 2. I don't think the Heat can win without him having a spectacular performance, and that's not really going out on a limb really whatsoever. So that will be more later on. We will talk about the NBA Finals. But again, sticking with the theme of boxing, it's going to be a great thing to have on our next guest. He is from Go Fight Live. Now, the website is gfl.tv, and it's going to be awesome to talk some Floyd Mayweather. Boxing is back up on top where it belongs. And, of course, bringing it on to the show right now is Richard Quinones. Richard, how you doing? Welcome to Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
I'm doing well, and it's really an honor. I'm real happy to be joining you guys, talking a little sweet science, and I appreciate a couple moments.
Yeah, of course. And, again, let's go to the big story. It was about a week ago Floyd decided to sign in the fall, and lately, the last 6-7 years or so, Floyd has only fought once a year, and when you make about $30 or $40 million, Richard, for one night's work, you can't really blame you for taking the rest of the year off. But for some reason,
no, you can't.
But for some reason, he's going to fight twice in 1 year. First, I want to discuss that particular point. Why is he deciding to take the extra workload and fight twice in 2013?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail right on the head. I mean, you look at what he was able to do against Guerrero and just really destroyed him. I mean, he didn't look rusty at all. He's 36 years old, and I think the issue was why he chose Canelo Alvarez for that September 14th fight is because, everyone wanted to see this fight, but Mayweather and Guerrero, they probably, and this is just what I'm being told, didn't do that well from a PPV, a pay-per-view standpoint. So again, money-wise, it's always about the money. You know that, especially with Mayweather. The interesting thing is now that fight against Canelo, which is going to take place in September, you're looking at a catch weight for that fight. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. If he was 147 against Guerrero, he's going to actually have to now make Alvarez drop a couple pounds. And the beauty from Alvarez's standpoint is that the fight's going to be on Mexican Independence Day. So I think it makes sense. You got a 36-year-old who's the best pound for pound, you can argue. You got a 22-year-old who's got speed, punching power, the next up-and-comer, and it's going to be a great bout, and I think it's the fight that everyone wanted to see, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons why you're seeing it right after this Guerrero fight.
It is interesting with boxers because I'm a big fan of the sport, and in 2007, Floyd Mayweather said the fight against Oscar De La Hoya would be his last. He said that very clearly. That was 6 years ago. Now he keeps on fighting at 36. How many fights does Floyd Mayweather have left in the tank right now?
It's a great question. I mean, the beauty with Floyd is he's just a great technician in the ring, great defense, no mistakes. His conditioning is just really on another level when you look at it. The only one I can really equate that I've covered over the years who really doesn't put anything bad in his body from a nutritional and diet standpoint is Bernard Hopkins. And Hopkins can probably fight until he's 50, 51. Mayweather just really, I don't want to say he picks and he chooses, but he's 36. Look, everyone wanted to see him fight Manny Pacquiao. The problem was no fighter wants to get blood drawn before a bout. And I know there was an issue with the 50-50 split, and Floyd wanted 60, at times 65, which is just it's ridiculous. It's outrageous. But the guy knows how to win. He's a testament to the sport. His record speaks volumes. He'll go up. He's fought down before. He's a 5-division champ, and I don't, when you look at his title fights, I believe he's 19-0 against current, former, or future world champs. So that to me tells you, okay, the guy can probably fight till he's 40, and he loves the money. I mean, the guy just bet, I think, $25 million the other night on the Miami Heat Indiana Pacers game. So he likes the money.
One second, hold on. 25 million. He made a bet. What was the 25 million? He made a bet of 25 million.
He took Miami to points. That's what they're saying in Vegas in the States. That's exactly what they're saying that he took. God, the Miami Heat.
Wow. Okay. Well,
actually, let me it was 5.9. I'm sorry, it wasn't 25 million. It's still a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
$6 million on Game 7.
Yeah, that's still. And actually, let's go into that because it is known Floyd loves to gamble, and you even saw in the 24/7 specials. He has no shame about it. He talked about. There was an episode he bet $100,000 on Allen Iverson and the Nuggets back in 2007. I mean, does he seriously have a gambling problem? He'll say, I have enough money, so it's not a problem. But you've seen athletes go the wrong way. A-Rob at the poker games, Jordan before the first retirement. Is he going to lose his money one day because of this problem?
I don't think so. I mean, look, it doesn't hurt that he just signed a 6-fight, $200 million deal with Showtime. And when you think about $6 million wager, it's pretty outrageous, even for a guy like Mayweather. But everyone knows that's just how he is. I mean, he likes that rush. I mean, you brought up Jordan years ago before series against the Knicks. was playing blackjack
93.
down in Atlantic City.
Right.
You know, Barkley does it on a golf course. So he's a guy that likes the action. And look, God bless him. He can get away with it. It's a drop in a hat for him.
Yeah, I think, again, if he can get away with it, fine. Wow, that is something else. You're talking about making the game interesting to put about $5.9 million on it. Wow, that's something else. Okay, so we believe Floyd, you were saying Floyd probably could fight till he's 40. I want to talk about his image issues because last summer went to prison for 3 months because of the assault on his wife. And Floyd is generally known as a good guy. That villain act is pretty much an act. He even will admit it. He'll say after the fight good things about his opponent. But that assault trial and the jail time, did that hurt his image? Or do boxing fans not really care? They want to see the guy go in and win, and they don't care what he does outside of the ring.
I think when you look at, what Floyd has done and the jail time, and the problem with Floyd Mayweather, he's a great boxer. Take him outside the ring, and I like to just keep it in the ring, but you bring up a great question. His public image, I think, has taken a shot. Now, you look at the hardcore boxing fans, they're just like, that's Floyd, whatever. They just want to see some great boxing in the ring. But the issue with Floyd is that, you know, he's a type of guy that he thinks he's kind of bigger than the sport, and to some extent he is. The problem is that when you're burning $100 bills in a nightclub, when you're getting in domestic disputes with your wife, when you're having issues with your father and your management group, you know, when you bolt HBO to go to Showtime, that's what's wrong with the sport. And I can't blame Floyd for some of those things. Look, the issues with his wife, the burning the money, that's, you know what, I don't like that kind of stuff. I think it's nonsense. And I think a lot of people, if you polled 100 people, I would probably guess to say 75 to 80 want to see Floyd Mayweather lose. They want to see him get knocked on his rear. They don't care who it is. They just want to see him get knocked down because he just comes off as that guy you just want to see take the fall. But again, from a boxing standpoint, he's a hell of a boxer. He's a great boxer. He's going to go down as one of the all-time great, but it just doesn't help his cause, the out-of-the-ring stuff, so to speak, just like an athlete off the field in the NFL. He does a lot of goofy and just stupid stuff. And, look, I think it's really just a crock what happened in jail. I think you should have served more time. That's just my opinion. You know, you do the crime, you got to do the time. And obviously it's because of who he was and his name that got him out early for good behavior and time spent. But I definitely think to some people his image has taken a hit. At the end of the day, if he knocks out Alvarez,
nobody cares.
No one's going to care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, now there was a list of the top 25 athletes, and number 14 is Floyd Mayweather, $34 million. Now, my understanding, I'll have to double-check, but they usually go summer to summer, so the fight in the fall won't count to this year. But in any case, I do want to talk about money. That is his name, Floyd Money Mayweather. How much money is he selected to make against Canelo, and then we'll factor that in, how much he'll make in 2013. So what are they talking about now financially for Floyd Money Mayweather?
You know, the numbers, I think this fight alone might just break the record when it comes to PPV. I really do. I mean, I couldn't tell you what kind of numbers. I just know that everyone wants to see this fight. Everyone's talking about it. You know, they're giddy about it. When I found out that Mayweather was going to fight Alvarez, I got to be honest, I was like a little kid in a candy store on Christmas Day. Like I was real excited. You know, this can break PPV records. And again, think about this. If they do decide also if the fight itself is going to be on Showtime, well, again, I mean, it's just the money that's going to be invested, the advertising. I mean, look, you've got Mayweather, and then you got a Mexican fighter in Alvarez. So again, it's Mexican Independence Day. I mean, now you're talking major opportunities for product placement, for advertising. I mean, we're talking maybe $100 million, $200 million. The number is just going to be off the chart. It's going to be absolutely off the chart. And if he wins, if Mayweather wins, I don't really see why he ever needs to fight again, because the money he makes off this, plus the 24/7, plus endorsements, he doesn't need to do anything anymore.
But we know he will. But, wow, so you think this will break the pay-per-view record, I believe right now, I mean, Floyd has that record already, right? Isn't it? Is it Floyd,
Correct.
Oscar? Which is it against Oscar De La Hoya, or was it Shane Mosley?
It was De La Hoya. Yeah,
Okay.
It was De La Hoya, and that was the I believe it was 2005, and that was also Cinco de Mayo. So again, that was a large day for Mexicans as well, and that I don't have the numbers in front of me. I do apologize, but yeah, that's one of the large marks.
All right, now Floyd, if he gets this victory in the fall, and he could get by knockout, whatever, a legacy. Let's talk about that. He's never lost. Now, many people say that he has lost one fight. Of course, the gentleman he had a rematch against, I'll look him up in a moment. Sorry, it's blanking right now. But other than that, he not only has he won every single fight he's been in, he's only lost one judge's card. That was against De La Hoya. He won that fight by split decision. So a lot of people say he's ducked fighters. A lot of people said his style's not aggressive enough, too defensive. But at the end of the day, undefeated. Where would he rank in boxing history if he gets the victory over Canelo in the fall?
Well, I still think the story is going to be written with him because I don't know if he's ever going to fight Manny Pacquiao. And look, I understand he's got an undefeated record. I mean, look, I can throw a guy out there that no one's ever heard of, Paul Spadafora, who fights out of Pittsburgh. That's 49-0. I'm not putting that guy in the pantheon of great boxers.
Right. Good point.
But when you look at Floyd Mayweather, I think when it's all said and done, pound for pound, you're going to argue that he's one of the all-time greats. And I think it's because he was smart, but I also think he did duck some fighters. I mean, that's just my opinion from covering the sport now for about 15 years. I do think he's ducked some fighters. I would have loved to have seen him fight De La Hoya again. I would have loved to see him fight Manny Pacquiao, and Pacquiao I kind of think is a shell of himself. But Floyd's going to go down as one of the all-time greats. I mean, you can look at any weight class. You can look at what he's done, 4 or 5 different divisions. He's dominated the sport now for about 15-plus years. There's no disputing that. There's absolutely no disputing that whatsoever. And I think what a lot of people fail to remember is that when you look at some of the guys he's fought, Castillo, Judah, De La Hoya, Hatton, Marquez, Mosley, Pacquiao, Ortiz, Cotto, he fought Gotti. These guys were all in their prime. They were all in their prime. And he beat all of them. And that's why I think you got a 22-year-old kid in Alvarez who's salivating right now. Look, I don't – if you were to ask me right now who's winning this fight, I couldn't tell you. But I'll tell you right now, I think Alvarez has a heck of a chance. I'm not calling it at this moment, but I think this can be the fight that Mayweather might get his first loss.
Now, of course, the gentleman that Mayweather fought twice, because many say that he lost the first fight, was Jose Luis Castillo. So I have that there. He did, again, get the unanimous decision both times, but many thought that he lost that fight. Let's talk about odds. Now, you think that the fight perhaps is a pick-em. Do Vegas have odds yet of who will win the fight in rounds and that kind of stuff? Have they come out with odds yet?
No, because you know what? What'll happen is as you get closer to the fight, I mean, anything can happen. Someone can have the flu, they can suffer a slight little injury during training. That typically comes out around a week or so, and then right up to the fight, you will have basically up to second live odds on the fight, and it's. I know you guys know this in the Super Bowl. You can prop bets on coin flips. I mean, they'll probably have round by round. They'll probably have it down round by round, what the odds are. They'll have stat ads, power punches landed, quality punches thrown, and the money that's going to be shifted in hands is just going to be absolutely ridiculous. It really is. It's going to be you're never going to see anything like it again. It's going to be unheard of just because of what Mayweather has done for pay-per-view when it comes to boxing.
All right, let's talk about the technical aspects of this fight. Floyd is very much known as a defensive fighter, a counter-puncher, so he uses his opponent's aggressiveness really against him. He also, for some reason, loves to go into a corner and kind of put his head backwards, and it works for him. Floyd also has some techniques that are not so orthodox. He likes to keep his hands low many times. Talk about Canelo's style. Canelo's got great hand speed, very quick and young, obviously 22 years old. Talk about some of the advantages he'll have going into this big fight against Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, you brought up some great points. I mean, Canelo's 22 years of age, and I'll go back to the Trout fight. It was a great win. It was a signature win for Canelo Alvarez. At times, he was running out of gas in that fight, and I think against Mayweather, he's going to have to use his jab. He's going to have to cut off the ring. The beauty with Mayweather, since he's so crafty, he's a defensive-minded fighter in the ring, I think that might pose problems. Now, you alluded to Mayweather. At times, Mayweather, there will be a spot in a fight, in a big fight, where Mayweather, even though he picks and chooses his moments and he's patient, he doesn't make mistakes, he will drop his hands. Now, I'm not saying that's mistakes. It could be that he's tired. Maybe he's playing a little peekaboo defensively. I don't know. But if you do that against Alvarez, there might be an opportunity for Alvarez to make it a fight because, again, he's going to throw a lot of jabs, and he's got some power punches. He loves to utilize that jab. He doesn't allow guys to kind of get inside. Floyd does like to get inside at times, and I think the advantage in that regard would go to Alvarez. And, again, he's just 22 years old, and a lot of people don't understand that. If you watch that fight where he got the WBC and WBA super welterweight titles back in April against Trout, he dismantled Trout, but there were times where he got a little lackadaisical, ran out of gas a little bit, I think because he was so pumped, he's so young. The one thing is you can't do that against Floyd Mayweather. You have to pace yourself a little bit, pick and choose, use that jab, and then be careful in the danger rounds. We're talking round 5, round 6, round 7, because that's usually where Mayweather kind of imposes his will on his opponent, and then, typically we've seen it 44 times, he's come out on top.
All right, let's switch gears just for a little bit. Mike Tyson came out with a quote that says, if Jimmy Lennon Sr. is not a true Hall of Famer, I'm not sure who is. What are your thoughts about that? Jimmy Lennon, famous Showtime announcer, his best line is, it's Showtime. And I believe, I may be wrong, but he's the one who may have came up with Mike Tyson really needing no introduction the world over, the one and only Mike Tyson. He said that several times as well. What are your thoughts about Jimmy Lennon Jr. not getting in the Hall of Fame? Mike Tyson very upset over it.
Well, Jimmy Leonard Jr., I know he's actually going to, and I'm pretty positive, I think he's getting inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, which is actually going to take place in New York, right? Which is probably in a week or so. So, look, I think the guy's great. I mean, I do. I do. I think when you look at ring announcers and you look, he's primarily, as you alluded to, been with Showtime. He's been doing it for a long, long time, 25 years. He was at the mic at Tyson versus Holyfield, Winky Wright versus Trinidad. He followed in his father's footsteps as well. I think he's done some work for EA Sports as well. So I know from the International Boxing Hall of Fame, he's going to get in. Boxing Hall of Fame, yeah. I mean, look, he's a great ring announcer. I mean, I don't think a lot of people understand this. Jim Lampley Jr. Pardon me. And the name is escaping me. Michael Buffer. Thank you.
Michael Buffer, right?
Michael Buffer. He started and club bouts. And then that's when he came up with his signature phrase, and just like that, he was able to patent and trademark it, and he's worth millions and millions of dollars, and he got picked up by all the big-time promoters. That's exactly what Jimmy Leonard Jr. was doing. Guys wanted him. I mean, when you look at some of the guys, Showtime, Don King, Don King Promotions wanted him from the get-go, and you made the point that the catchphrase is, it's Showtime. I mean, that's, for other networks, I believe he uses, like, it's Fight Time, but he does great, and I think it's pretty cool with him is that he always makes a point to, when he's got Spanish fighters that are fighting, he always makes a point to properly pronounce their names, and I think that kind of has gone a long way with Spanish boxing fans, especially Mexican and Puerto Rican fans. They're boxing crazed. I mean, they love it. So I definitely think that's a guy that certainly has earned a trip into the Hall of Fame, and he's been great for the sport of boxing.
All right, let's talk about Bernard Hopkins now. He's bringing the IBF belt to Brooklyn. We're going to fight a man named Karo Murat, and I think this is probably kind of an easy fight for him, but he does have the age advantage, of course. He's about 20 years younger than Bernard Hopkins, but just amazing. Hopkins, a champion at this age. You talked about his great conditioning and his diet, but and you think he could fight perhaps a few more years into his 50s. I think Hopkins actually might be the best fighter of this generation over Floyd, just because he beat Felix Trinidad, Oscar De La Hoya, Roy Jones Jr., on and on. Talk about Bernard Hopkins' place in boxing history.
I would have to say, in full disclosure, I respect the heck out of Bernard Hopkins. We've disagreed on a lot of things on the air at times, but he's a great boxer. He's one of the tough boxers to come out of Philadelphia. You look at his record: 50+ wins, 53-6. And you mentioned brilliantly some of the guys that he's fought, from Roy Jones Jr. to Pavlik to Gonzaga to Tarver to Wright. The only knock that I have on Roy Jones Jr. is, I thought he was not prepared for his bouts against Jermaine Taylor.
Right.
Back in 2005, and those were 5 months apart. Those were for some big-time belts: WBC, WBA, WBO, the middleweight titles. Lost that first one, split decision, then really got dominated. And then you kind of saw, all right, you get a soft Tarver, you get a Wright that's past his time. Then he loses to Kawasaki. Then he goes on a nice little win streak. But you saw a couple of his bouts, Pasquale, and then against Dawson, and then Dawson again, where he just started to complain about the decisions. When he loses a fight, he always has to make a point of saying he was robbed, or there's an excuse, or there's going to be an appeal. That's the only knock I would ever have on Bernard Hopkins. He's tough, he's gritty, he does not put anything bad in his body at all. And right now, if you look at it, if you look at the light heavyweight, the rankings, I mean, who really is there? It's Hopkins, it's Dawson, and then, who else is there? So he can sit there at the light heavyweight division for another 2-3 years.
Great
and I
point.
don't think anyone's going to challenge him.
Great point. Kind of tells you where the division is in. I'll tell you, though, also one of my favorite victories Bernard had was against Kelly Pavlik. Now, that was not for the title, but, I mean, everyone was shocked. Bernard Hopkins, I believe, was 43 at the time. Kelly Pavlik, 26. And Kelly's never been the same, and he basically became an alcoholic. I mean, a lot of these guys Bernard Hopkins beat, they're never the same. I mean, they just Felix,
you're right.
Felix Trinidad retired and for 3 years, and then came back against Mayorga. Tarver disappeared, and Bernard Hopkins has a very funny line where the fight after Tarver, he showed up with a milk carton with Antonio Tarver's face on it and says, "Has anyone seen this guy?" And and he said, I mean, it's talked about that he ruins fighters, and one of the things about it is. That style, that the thing that they can't really deal with it. What is your take on how he destroys fighters?
Well, it's a great point, by the way, that you bring up when you lose. I mean, when you look at what happened with Pavlik, and then he wound up losing to Martinez, and he fought a couple of soft guys in Rubio and Espino. Bernard he was a street fighter, he was tough, and then he learned how to perfect his craft in the ring. And I think what he does is he understands tendencies and weaknesses against his opponent. So if a guy's got a short jab, if he's leaning in, if he's crouching down, if he's backing off, if he's trying to fight moving backwards, Hopkins knows that. He's a guy that just studies, he understands, he watches, he studies, he absorbs. And the one thing that he's been able to do throughout his career, again, not to harp on it, is the conditioning. He's always had a solid camp and a solid group of people around him, but he's always a guy that knows how to adjust during a bout. And a lot of fighters don't want to do that. A lot of fighters, we talk about the opening scoring system. When they know they're behind, they got to chase. Then all of a sudden they got to be aggressive. Hopkins is always patient. And you know what? A lot of people don't think Bernard Hopkins had hand speed back in the day or some power. He most certainly did. It slowed down a little bit. So what he does is he uses other things. He knows how to keep a guy if he's going to get pushed up in the ropes. You know what? He'll just go a different direction. He'll keep him in the center of the ring. He knows when it's time to charge and when to take some chances. And that's just innate. I mean, that's something that can't be taught. I think that's what's made him so successful. And again, he's just tough. He's just a guy that, the Dawson fight, which was a majority decision loss, that was in Atlantic City. I saw that fight. And he didn't look good at all. And then he comes back and he beats this kid, Cloud, which was a unanimous decision. I'm like, okay. And then he talked about how he's got that fight against Marat. I don't really know how it's going to end. I mean, Hopkins, he can lose that fight, but he's positioned himself where at 48 he doesn't really seem to be slowing down. A guy that really slowed down that I always think of in line with Bernard Hopkins, and he's one of my favorites as well, is Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. was never the same when he lost to Green. And that's a guy that just slowed down, and it's almost like a running back. 5 years in the league, that's 6 years in the league, boom. They just absolutely break down. I just don't see it in Bernard Hopkins, and that's why I think he can fight until he's 50, 51, if he wanted to.
All right, last question before I let you go. We talked about at the beginning of this interview, you are part of GFL.TV. Give us a promotion, a plug for that network. Tell us more about it.
That's great. I appreciate it. So Go Fight Live TV, GFL.TV, GoFightLive.com. Basically, it's the premier website media outlet for 24/7 combat sports. You have boxing, MMA, Muay Thai. We distribute to about 15 countries locally. You have mobile devices. In the States on Comcast Sportsnet, which is 6 regions, we hit about 22 million homes. I've been blessed by doing an in-studio weekly recap show. I do a lot of the blow-by-blow for boxing as well as Muay Thai. And just to give you guys a little, if I could for a second, there are some fighters that are going to be some world champs. I mean, we've had some big-time guys on our network. Amir Mansour is a heavyweight that fights out of Delaware, 40 years old. Time is against him, but you know what? He's 18-0. He's got Tyson S. Power. He actually called out Tyson Fury, wants to fight Fury. We have a kid, Dusty Hernandez-Harrison, that fought on the network, welterweight. That is a name you have to remember, 15-0. They believe that he's going to be a welterweight champ. He fought this kid, Eddie Soto, 2 weeks ago. Soto fought Edgar Santana, who fought Josito Lopez, who, as you know, fought Canelo Alvarez. So this kid is a good-looking kid, great jab, young. He's 19. He got the exception to turn pro at 16, had his first out at 18. We have a kid out of Philadelphia, Tion Kennedy, that fights on our network. So the network itself, what we do is we broadcast at different venues across the country and overseas as well with some real-time stuff. Kickboxing, martial arts, wrestling, whatever the venue is, if it's in a casino, if it's in a hotel, we go and we put together a quality broadcast, and it's aired for television, and it's also PPV online. So you guys can register. You can register for free. You have access to content. You can watch me Wednesdays do the in-studio weekly recap show. If you want to watch 20,000 hours of footage in our library, you guys can certainly do that. And it's real cutting-edge stuff. We're certainly looking to do stuff, a lot more stuff overseas in real time as it happens, and I've been real blessed to be ringside calling a lot of action, and it's something that, you know, hopefully I'll be calling some of the fights in your neck of the woods.
That would be awesome. We would certainly love to see some good boxing action here in Israel. Richard, thank you so much. Again, Richard Quinones, you can check it out, GFL.TV, and we will certainly have you on in the future to discuss more big boxing events. Thank you so much for being on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. God bless, and good luck with everything. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Be well out there. All right.
Thank you.
That was Richard Quinones. We're going to stay here and not take a commercial break, and we're going to bring on a good friend of the program, Brin-Jonathan Butler, in just a few moments. If you're just joining us, this is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. So much to talk about. NBA Finals kicks off tonight. Game 1, the Miami Heat versus the San Antonio Spurs. We'll see if Tim Duncan has anything left in the tank or if he does not, and we'll find out if they can get things done. We're going to take a commercial break. We apologize about that. We'll take a commercial break and have Brin on the other side of this break. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook. Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.IsraelGym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. Again, thank you for tuning in to us. We have a great show the rest of the way. We're here for about another 90 minutes. So, again, thank you for joining us. We're going to have on Ari Bluestein at about 1:30 local time, and we will have at 1 in the morning local time Joe Robbins. But right now we're going to bring on a very special guest. He is the director of Split Decision, the story of Guillermo Rigondeaux. And that, of course, is Brin-Jonathan Butler. We'll discuss more about Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Canelo, and other boxing news going on out there. I'm sure Brin will have his 2 cents regarding Floyd Mayweather. And on the line right now, the director of Split Decision, Brin-Jonathan Butler. Brin, welcome back to Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
How you doing, Ari?
Doing great. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but apparently Floyd Mayweather Jr. gambled $5.9 million on Game 7 between the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers. Were you aware of this?
I had read it, but I didn't even want to verify it. It just seems so disgusting.
Well, how could a guy like this have this type of gambling problem? And again, as I said earlier, he probably doesn't consider it a problem because he has the money, but this does not sound good when you factor mafia involvement is in sports, especially boxing all the time. If he gets in with the wrong people, owes them too much money, you never know what could happen in a big fight. What do you see happening with Floyd's gambling issues later on in his career or even in the next few years?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I have a very mixed relationship with gambling, seeing that it was gambling on a Guillermo fight allowed me to finish the film.
Right.
A 20-1 bet. However, I loathe gambling, and I think if this is the best that Floyd can come up with to spend his money, boy, after fighting is removed from the equation, this is going to be a pretty meaningless person, which is unfortunate.
Now, Floyd, again, decided to fight Canelo in the fall. As I mentioned, this is the first time Floyd will fight twice in a year since 2007. Is this, again, just the money? He is Money Mayweather. Even though he made $30+ million last fight, he's going to probably make somewhere to about $50 million against Canelo. What are the numbers in your estimate that he'll make against Canelo in the fall?
it all depends on the pay-per-views, but I mean, this thing could go through the roof, and Floyd has been very savvy in terms of marketing his fights, so I'm sure in the lead up to this, he'll do something to offend somebody and bring in more of the Mexican audience that won't then, even is there already in terms of, Canelo is very popular, probably the most popular Mexican fighter right now. So I'm sure Floyd will offer some fireworks because his last fight certainly didn't do as well as expected. And, maybe this one could even rival De La Hoya, De La Hoya Mayweather in terms of pay-per-view buys, which would be enormous.
Right.
All this depends on the lead up, like what unfolds.
And, of course, at this time, the biggest pay-per-view fight was Oscar De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather in 2007. The fight against Robert Guerrero, not maybe the numbers that Floyd wanted. What was the reason for that? Do people think Guerrero wasn't going to stand much of a chance, partly because of his skill level, partly because of the gun incident with in the New York airport? What do you think were the reasons that some of the numbers were a bit down for Floyd standards?
Well, certainly everything you mentioned. I mean, if I recall, I think he was a 7-1 underdog going into that fight. Floyd was pretty dull as far as the Showtime marketing leading up to it. He wasn't really that heavily involved in promotion. There was a lot of flack that kind of, we've seen this before with the sort of 24/7 version that Showtime had, doing their infomercials for the lead up to the fight. So I think people are getting a little bit tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. They've just seen it before. So Guerrero didn't offer much of a kind of counterpoint to Floyd as far as creating any drama. So, despite the fact that Floyd put on one of, a really impressive performance, I just think the narrative going into the fight, a lot of people didn't really care. Which is maybe what necessitated him taking a fight like Canelo, because he, I think he's got 5 more fights on that massive contract he signed. He wants to close it out with people who are going to help him sell tickets.
Now, just real quick, going to Guerrero, do you know what is the latest regarding the gun charges? Is he really going to do somewhere between 2 to 3 years? Is that still on the table for him?
I haven't followed it up. I was bored out of my mind with Guerrero leading up to the fight and wasn't all that impressed with how he fought, so I'm boycotting Guerrero.
Maybe it's he could go to prison and it'd be more exciting when he comes back or something if he doesn't have time there. Now, speaking of prison, of course, Floyd went to prison last year for a few months with a domestic assault charge. No one really seems to care. No one's really brought that up. It doesn't hurt his image. I don't think that knocked ticket sales down. At the end of the day, do people not really care as long as the boxer gets the W in the ring?
Oh, it's really tough to say. I mean, that issue has fascinated me for a while. Why do some celebrities get away with doing, John Lennon went on record with Rolling Stone magazine as claiming he was a serial woman hitter, as he said. When you mention that to people young and old, they say, no, I mean, that can't be true. But he went on record numerous times talking about it, but we just like him, so we just give him a pass. And, Tyson, obviously, I don't think anybody can get 2 or 3 sentences into discussing him without name-dropping that he was a rapist. So where Floyd is, it's, I don't know, somewhere in the middle. People who don't like him will raise it. The people who do like him won't. It hasn't seemed to interfere with, I guess, the kind of preconceived notions we have about him on both sides of liking him or hating him. So, but it was significant what he did. It was not a minor thing, like finding out that his girlfriend was cheating on him with an NBA player. Apparently, he just lashed out and was exceedingly violent with her, and did this in front of his own son. So it's not something to just let it pass. It demonstrates some really frightening things about what he's capable of, I think.
Yeah, again, a professional fighter no one should hit a woman ever, but especially a professional fighter could do so much damage, could technically kill anybody, the average person, because they're so skillful. One of the things, going to Tyson, my father said this when I was a kid, because after Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear, that's where people really started to have a dislike for him, even more so. They started saying he was crazy. And I told my dad, well, he did rape somebody. Why is it that when he bit the ear, then people really, really had a dislike. Then Tyson lost a lot of fans. Some like the carnal aspect, but the biting of the ear. Is it a lot of it because what these athletes do behind the scenes is behind the scenes? You didn't see Floyd Mayweather beat his girlfriend in front of his son, but you do see him get the victories in the ring. Is that a big part of it, TV and media, that we see the good things and don't necessarily see the bad?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, if you're a supporter of Floyd, you just don't think about what he did. And I mean, he's on record as what he's done. And they I believe Yahoo.com interviewed the girlfriend, and she laid out her case about exactly what happened. So I think if you're for him, you just say, yeah, he served his time, and that's the end of the discussion. And if you dislike him, I guess you can go into the details and just say, how far could this escalate? Could we see O.J. Simpson down the road from Floyd when boxing is no longer part of his life, and maybe gambling gets a little dull?
Right.
Where is this guy going to go? I mean, clearly family and now I guess jealousy related to women he's been with is a major issue for him in terms of insecurity and vulnerability. I mean, with his criminal record, if this guy steps out of line again, he could do some serious time.
The interesting thing with Floyd, all athletes I've seen and come across are very sensitive. I know it's ironic to a lot of people because they're so physically built, but I think Floyd is even more sensitive than the average athlete. You've seen live on TV with Larry Merchant, other people, that if he doesn't feel like he's getting proper praise or his props, he's very sensitive. It looks like almost he's about to cry, gets very upset. Do you think Floyd is more sensitive than the average boxer, average athlete?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my God, his family history, I agree with you entirely. I think most fighters that I've encountered have not only been sensitive, but I mean, I think are very respectful, quiet, humble people, because something that's intrinsic in the sport of boxing is that, you're in constant contact with some of the most vulnerable elements of who you are. I mean, every day that you're training, you're thinking about those things. You're testing yourself, you're pushing yourself in areas where ordinary people, rational people, are afraid to go. And none of these fighters are crazy. They're finding ways to get past it. But a lot of that is, you're in very close contact with stuff that most people run away from. And as a fighter, you have to live like a monk. So not only do you have to, be facing your demons and yourself, but you can't periodically run away with the substances. I know some of them do, obviously, but to maintain that level of discipline, you also have to. There's no mind altering permitted. It's all on you. Nobody can fight for you. So yeah, fighters are some of my favorite people to visit in any country I travel to. I try and find a boxing gym to be around them, because they're just really nice people the majority of the time. However, in Floyd's case, I just think you look at the family history when he was a child with his dad being a drug dealer and getting shot at while he's literally holding Floyd up as a shield. I mean, that's the kind of person that Floyd comes from. Ugh. And yet he's tried to stay loyal to him.
That's actually, I knew that Floyd Sr. was shot while holding Mayweather Jr., but he used his son as a shield. That has been proven?
Yeah, I mean, I believe he picked Floyd up in order to either shield himself or disincentivize whoever was pointing a gun in his direction. So I don't know of many things that speak worse of a father than the action that Floyd's dad did. And not only did Floyd's father do it, but he did it to Floyd. So if anybody would be sensitive to the kind of person his dad is, my God. And I mean, what does that do to a child? So I think Floyd has found a lot of safety and security in establishing his identity as inside the ring, because outside the ring probably sounds like a pretty troubling place for him.
Wow. We're speaking with Brin-Jonathan Butler. Did not know. I knew that he held Floyd. I know that he picked him up to try to use him as a shield. What is the latest relationship with father and son, Floyd Sr., Floyd Jr.? We see it go up and down all the time. It looks like they're good now. Then they had a fight on 24/7 when they were yelling at each other. It looked like they were actually going to physically fight. What is the latest relationship right now between Floyd Sr. and Floyd Jr.?
Well, I think probably after that fight, certainly, from the fight previous with Cotto, Floyd looked a little vulnerable, and he wanted to reestablish, I guess, inside and outside the ring, his relationship with his dad, and his dad worked his corner, and what his dad said before the fight and after the fight was, we're getting back to Floyd being the best defensive fighter in the world, or at least the second best, given my own prejudice towards Rigondeaux. But anyway, I think the result was one of Floyd's best performances in a long time. He looked magnificent. So that's gotta impact him in all kinds of positive ways, and thinking how much his father contributed to it. So I think they're as good as they've been in a long time.
Is it one of those things where Floyd Jr. will be willing to put up with some of the shenanigans of Floyd Sr. and some of the insults and the weird behavior because it will make Floyd, at the end of the day, a better fighter?
He has been absolutely masterful at just turning whatever is going on, whether he's confident or insecure or troubled or stability, whatever it is, he just turns it into fuel to be even better. I've never doubted the guy's ability, but I mean, to see him get rocked in the ring by Shane Mosley, or, in my opinion, losing to Castillo in the first fight and coming back immediately with a rematch. I mean, this guy, not just in skill set, but in temperament, is just as good as you can get. You're going to have to, you will not be able to break his will, I guess is the bottom line. You might be able to knock him out, but he will never give up, because the composure he showed after suffering the family stuff, as well as suffering, getting hit by some big shots. He's a very, very special fighter.
Now, let's talk about the fight against Canelo. Canelo, 22 years old, very fast, hand speed. Break down, a lot of people think Floyd might lose this fight. Could be a pick-up fight. Floyd is 36 years old, Canelo 22, as I mentioned. Going into this fight, right away, I know it's a long way off, but do you see an advantage for one fighter over the other at this point?
I always would give the advantage to Floyd. The only fighter I would have ever not given him the advantage with was, I think, Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao, a few years ago, I would have favored him. But other than that, I just think his skills. I'm impressed with Canelo. I think it's a brave choice on Floyd's part to take a young guy. He usually is very selective in the opponents he takes, either being a little smaller or a little older or after a tough fight, But the only kind of provision in this fight that he was really a hardliner about in order to gain an advantage was the catch weight being at 152. Which is not a small thing, because I believe Canelo can jump into the neighborhood of 170 pounds once he steps into the ring, despite weighing in at 154 the day before. So extra 2 pounds is a lot more than it sounds to your average, sports fan. It's a big, big deal. And I'm sure you remember with Marquez, how Floyd, I think quite reprehensively took advantage of the disparity in weight and didn't even bother to step on the scale at any point to show how far he exceeded the weight that was agreed upon. He just paid a little fine to Marquez, but he looked massive in comparison. So Floyd's very shrewd in these contract negotiations, but at the same time, Canelo had a lot of leverage, just seeing the fact that whoever he fights, he's going to make big money on his own. He's a huge ticket seller. So I think it'll be a fantastic fight. But I would definitely favor Floyd. But Canelo is dangerous, and he's strong, and he's young, and I think he's, making a legitimate name for himself. So this is a wonderful opportunity for him.
Do you think that perhaps the fight of the fall could be one of the best we've seen in 5 or 6 years? Will be one of those type of fights that you only talk about, like Sugar Ray Leonard versus Hearns, or Hagler Hearns, those type of things? Are we looking at that type of fight coming up in the fall?
Oh, it absolutely has a potential for it. I think if you have the Floyd Mayweather that fought Cotto walking into the ring against Canelo, he's very beatable if that's the case. if you have the Floyd who just stepped into the ring against Guerrero, I could easily see this just being another routine, unanimous decision where, he doesn't take any risks and he's able to just grossly outbox Canelo. I think then Canelo, of course, has a puncher's chance, but it's remote. So question is, 36 years old, that, I just had a 34th birthday and I'm in Los Angeles now and every morning I'm running over to Freddie Roach's gym to hit the bag and go through the motions. And boy, the joints and the muscles don't feel the same when you're
right.
20.
Absolutely.
So Floyd's put in a lot more time than me.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I just crossed 30, and walking in Jerusalem, the hills wasn't the same as when I did when I was 25 and 20. So I have understand that as well. With this fight, you were talking about Floyd has some big fights left on this massive contract, wants to go out in style. And you mentioned Manny Pacquiao, that would be the one guy you might give an advantage to. At the end of the day, are we ever going to see this fight?
As I always do, and it always annoys him, I asked Freddie Roach that. I think question number 4 when I walked into the gym. I just can't help it.
Right.
And he said, never. It will never, ever, ever happen. And I would not favor Pacquiao at this point over Mayweather either. I think the Pacquiao who would have beaten him, Floyd very wisely avoided. So I don't think that guy is there anymore. And God, the mileage on Pacquiao is out of this world. I mean, look at how many fights he's had, let alone how many wars he's had, let alone getting knocked out like that. I mean, Roach said that his girlfriend, who's a doctor, thought that Pacquiao was dead after the punch.
Wow.
How does this bode in terms of, how Pacquiao will take a punch going forward, or emotionally, how will it affect him? I don't think he's going to improve at this point. So, yeah, I wish it would still happen, but I really, really don't see it ever happening.
And that, of course, that was Marquez's punch when he was really focused, right?
Exceedingly focused.
Right.
Yeah, Marquez, just
at 39 years old.
39.
39 threw a punch that knocked Pacquiao. We never really seen him knocked down like that in the 6th round because he was really focused. Going back, though, to Floyd ducking Pacquiao, it does happen. You saw Ray Leonard not fight Marvin Hagler in Hagler's prime, kind of waited until Hagler was 32, then was able to beat him, never fought him again. And it happens where Ali ducked, I don't know if you say ducked, but he didn't fight Stevenson from Cuba. And sometimes Ali only fought Foreman once. Foreman wanted a rematch. He didn't do that. So sometimes that happens with the great ones. They escape the guy they think might beat him.
Well, in kind of a candid moment, one of the things that Roach said that I've never heard him talk about was he talked about the quality of Pacquiao's opponents, when Pacquiao was just a wrecking ball. And he just said, the opponents we picked, and the job of picking opponents is to make your guy look good. And we picked name opponents who people wanted to see, but were they at their best necessarily? Probably not. But they were good enough and, the right names that we definitely caused a lot of excitement. So I think that's totally valid. I just think that Mayweather will probably be known a lot more for the fights he didn't take than the ones that he did. What would he have done against Margarito? When Margarito was fresh, I can't say that he would have won that fight, easily, or even if he would have won it. I think Shane Mosley would have given him a tremendous fight had he not fought him when Mosley was
almost 40
years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
so,
point.
I mean, Floyd deserves credit on the one hand for making smart decisions with his career, and as a fan, I want to see the best fights that are out there. And these guys' prime, the window of their prime is very, very limited, so it's kind of sad to see some of these great fights be the ones that define them, simply because they didn't happen.
Yeah, it's frustrating. That's the thing with other champions. The fights did happen. Ali did fight Frazier. Holyfield did fight Bowe. And, again, Leonard fought Hearns, even though Hearns and Hagler, even though wait until Hagler was later, still did fight him at the end of the day. Last question, Brin, before we let you go. Give us the latest on the film, the editing, and, of course, Guillermo's place, his thoughts, his feelings, all that stuff. Give us the latest on the film Split Decision.
Well, I'm in L.A. actually just doing a final edit on it, punching in some of the Donaire fight, which I wasn't going to do initially, but I've kind of changed my mind and think I did film him in the lead up to that fight, and there's some interesting moments that I think people will enjoy. Getting a window into sort of not just the tremendous victory that he had, but sort of the fight that he's had in terms of his private life outside the ring to get there, where he's made over $1 million. I mean, grossed $1 million as a professional fighter, and that is a very, very big deal for the country he came from, because he now becomes a real symbol that any of these great athletes come over here. I mean, you're seeing in baseball with this Cuban player on the LA Dodgers now just erupting the city in terms of, I think he's batting over 500 and hit a couple home runs yesterday in his second game. I just think Rigo's achievement will take a while for people to really understand how important it is, because I think he could have done it in his first fight in the U.S. So all those great fighters in the past, Stevenson fighting Ali, or Sabone fighting Tyson, I think we have to take it a little more seriously, somebody who has the amateur pedigree of these Cubans, because they've been dismissed up until now, and I don't think you can do that after what Rigo accomplished for Donaire.
No doubt about it. Brin, great stuff as always. Continued success with the film. Stay focused, obviously, and we will speak with you soon. Thank you for being on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. We will be in touch probably on Facebook really soon. But thank you so much, and enjoy the fight in the fall, of course.
My pleasure. It's just the word focus obviously has our own special connotation. So
of course, absolutely. And that's the way it should be, no doubt. All right, Brin, be out there. We'll speak with you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, Brin-Jonathan Butler, the director of Split Decision here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. Here's what we're going to do now, folks. We're going to take a commercial break, and then on the other side, we'll have on from OMG Poetry, Joe Robbins, to get a breakdown of the 2013 NBA Finals. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook, Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. Our thanks again to Brin-Jonathan Butler for just coming on and doing a splendid job talking about Floyd's gambling habits and, of course, his discuss as a person regarding the domestic violence. Where Floyd goes from here, who will know? We'll see if he gets the victory against Canelo, has a few more big fights on that big contract of his, and then we'll see if it goes off in the sunset or continues to fight on. Looks like the fight with Manny Pacquiao will never happen. And, of course, Brin goes to the same boxing gym that Freddie Roach is there. Freddie is Manny Pacquiao's trainer, and Freddie himself said that fight most likely will never happen. We're going to switch gears in the final hour of the program and discuss the 2013 NBA Finals. And on the line right now from OMG Poetry, Joe Robbins. Joe, welcome to Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
Hey, Ari, good to be back.
Of course, no doubt about it. And let's get right into the NBA Finals. I want to first talk about the Spurs. The Spurs very much under the radar through much of the season. Many people thought from the West it would be the Lakers or the Thunder. And even in the series, some people thought the Grizzlies were going to win the Western Conference Finals, yet the Spurs do it in very, very convincing fashion, getting in the sweep. They have a very balanced attack, but Tim Duncan's 37 years old. How have they been able to stay around? People thought that they were dead years ago, and here they are back in the NBA Finals for the first time since 2007.
I think it is the genius of Greg Popovich. Every NBA fan our age, and even younger NBA fans, has seen what he's been able to do. He's had the big three of Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker, but Ginobili's had injury problems. Duncan's getting older, like you said, probably in the last year or two of his career, depending on this series. And I think what Popovich has been able to do by plugging some of the younger pieces, like DeJuan Blair, Thiago Splitter, definitely Kawhi Leonard, and his coaching philosophy, the combination of the two surrounding the big three has really enabled them to stay relevant. And they're that team that every single year, just when we think they're too old or they're out of it, they're right there and back again. And this year, they're definitely that team again. They've gotten some extra rest heading into the finals, but getting to watch each one of their playoff series this year, Tim Duncan looks like he's a lot younger than 37. The big three are all showing up. They're being utilized the right way. They dominated Memphis. So I think Popovich, in addition to having his coaching schemes and knowing that team so well, then the other factor would be just the playoff experience. They've been here before. They've done it. Against Memphis last year, the Spurs talked about how they wanted to come back and make it back to the finals. And Memphis was ready to do that and to go to the finals, and they had no answer for the Spurs, even the game when Zach Randolph got going. And so you look at the size of the Spurs, the athleticism despite their age, and I think that's where that experience comes into play and can be the X factor when matched with Popovich's brilliant schemes for his team.
All right, I want to talk about Tim Duncan's legacy. At 37 years old, he's won 4 titles, just as many as Shaquille O'Neal, has 2 MVPs, which is one more than Shaq. And if he gets title number 5 in the ranks of the last 15 years of players, where does he go in your opinion? And of the greatest power forwards of all time, where does Timmy Duncan go in your opinion as well?
He's definitely top 5 in my opinion. I think the big question for me is whether he's a power forward or a center. really he's a center, but because of how the All-Star voting works, he's been a power forward so many years, so he could get in. But you look at the way he plays, I have him more as a center, but I agree with you. I think he'll go as a power forward, and I think if you look at the list of the best power forwards ever, it's a short list with Karl Malone and Charles Barkley at the top. And I think Duncan is right there with him, with all of his all-star games, clearly what he's done in the playoffs, like you mentioned, but the fact that he's been the MVP, the NBA MVP twice, that he was finals MVP 3 of the 4 finals, that 3 of the 4 championships he won, all of the different All-Star games, the back-to-back All-Star games, the NBA first teams. Few people have had a career like he has had. And then when you add in his class, his legacy off the court, everything he's known for with being soft-spoken, but the perfect type of leader, being a good guy, never causing problems in the locker room, no chemistry issues ever. He comes in and helps David Robinson win his championship, and he shows that he's able to do it. And then the fact that his nickname is the Big Fundamental, and he's part of the reason why people have hated as fans Spurs basketball for so many years, because it's so fundamental. The guy plays the game right, and any true NBA fan can recognize that. They may hate him for what he's done to their teams, especially other teams in the West, but Duncan is one of the best the game has ever seen, and I wouldn't be surprised if he plays another 2 years. They were talking about how he lost the weight, which helped his bum knee, which limited him last year. So he's in the best shape in years, even though he's 37, and there's no reason why he can't keep doing it. So when you look at where he is now, I already think he's a top 5 power forward of all time, and maybe even 2 or 3, and you add another couple years, especially if the Spurs win this championship, he's no question there.
And Duncan, even at 37 years old, top 3 in blocks this season. You talked about his class, no chemistry issues, no locker room things like the way Shaq and Kobe did, the way other players had. So all the more to Tim Duncan on just being a gentleman and a class act. Going to this NBA Finals, I want to talk about X Factors, but before we get to X Factors, if you're the Spurs, if you're Greg Popovich, who do you send out to guard LeBron James in this series?
I think that it's going to be Kawhi Leonard, and that's definitely the way that I would go. Kawhi Leonard out of San Diego State, he helped put San Diego State back on the map when they made the tournament a couple years. It was Kawhi Leonard and Jamal Franklin. Jamal Franklin is projected to be a first-round pick in the NBA this year, and he wouldn't exist, nothing against Jamal Franklin, if it wasn't for Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard has a 7'4" wingspan. He's 6'7", 6'8", so he can play the 3, he can play the 4, small forward, power forward. We all know about LeBron. LeBron, 6'9", 285 pounds. The numbers always fluctuate because no one really knows how to quantify them, and the Heat won't say, but we all know that LeBron is the greatest athletic specimen that the NBA has ever seen. Having said that, Kawhi Leonard has the reach to make up for some of the weight he's lacking, and he has the athleticism that can at least come close to LeBron. So I think if you look at the Spurs team, and with the position LeBron James will be playing on the court and the role he'll have in the game, it'll be Kawhi Leonard. Paul George did a great job against LeBron James in the last series, and LeBron still went off in the Eastern Conference Finals with Paul George playing great defense. I think the same thing will happen here But the difference between LeBron averaging 40 and helping the team win and LeBron averaging 25 to 30 will be Kawhi Leonard. I think he's the one player on the floor that can keep LeBron James in check as much as anybody is able to keep LeBron James in check.
Now, as you mentioned, Spurs come off the sweep against the Grizzlies, been very, very impressive in the postseason. The Heat, in the last round, were taken to 7 games by the Indiana Pacers, and I would have to say I was somewhat surprised because I thought they were going to cakewalk their way to the NBA Finals. In your opinion, why were the Pacers so effective and so successful against the Miami Heat? To give some perspective to our audience, the Heat went about 50 games and only lost 3 games, something that effect, 43-3, I think. And here they lose 3 games against the Pacers, and the Game 7 wasn't that competitive, but the fact the Pacers got them there certainly says something about their team. So how were the Pacers able to be successful against the Miami Heat?
I think more than anything, it comes down to size. Roy Hibbert in the middle. We saw what he did against the Knicks and Carmelo Anthony with that epic block, and then he did the same thing against the Heat. I think the Pacers' size, with Lance Stevenson as a big athletic wing, Paul George as one of the top defenders in the NBA and an athletic wing, and then Roy Hibbert in the middle, they were able to pound the Heat inside. Every game that the Heat lost, they were either even or negative on points in the paint. So every Indiana controlled the paint enough to win the series, obviously, in the other games. And when it came down to Game 7, the big three showed up. But Chris Bosh was non-existent most of the series, including Game 7, and I think that was really because of the Pacers' size and what they were able to do. They played a smaller person on LeBron, but anyone you put on LeBron is going to be smaller than LeBron most of the time. So they played Paul George and used his athleticism, and they said, we're not going to let you beat us inside. And when the Heat beat them inside, they won, and that's how they won the series. But I think that's why it was such a struggle for the Heat, and I think that's why Indiana and the Heat will be a great rivalry in the East for the next few years as these teams stay together and keep getting better. Looking at this series, the Spurs don't have the same size that the Heat did. They're arguably that the Pacers did. The Spurs are arguably more athletic and can throw different combinations and have a deeper bench than the Pacers, especially with the struggles that the Pacers guards were having. But they don't have Roy Hibbert. So I think size and Roy Hibbert were the main things that gave Miami trouble, and I don't think they'll come into play in the same way in this series. I think we'll see a big bounce back from Bosh and the continued strong play from Udonis Haslem and the Birdman down in the low box, where they were able to avoid the Pacers' height by working down there and waiting for the ball down there.
We're speaking with Joe Robbins from OMG Poetry here on Lewis Live on Israel Sports Radio. Now let's go into the X Factors. Of course, the main story will be LeBron James and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili and Dwayne Wade, etc. We talk about Leonard guarding LeBron James, but outside of that, who do you see as the X Factor for both ball clubs in the series in the 2013 NBA Finals?
For the Spurs, I think it's Greg Popovich. I was talking about it earlier, his coaching, the different schemes, the way he adjusts to the teams he plays and is able to adapt. We saw it against the Warriors. We definitely saw it against Memphis, where Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol were tearing up the postseason and then got swept because of the adjustments that the Spurs were able to make. So I think the X factor is Popovich. If he can will the team, if he can draw up a game plan that uses what the Spurs have, their experience, their athleticism at different positions, their deep bench, if he can do all of those On the other side of the ball, I think it's Chris Bosh. I think that Bosh needs to step up in a big way and come back. In Game 7, Dwayne Wade stepped up. He had a bad series against the Pacers. And even Game 7, he didn't shoot the ball well, but he got aggressive. He attacked the basket. He had a lot of points in the paint, and he finished with 9 rebounds. So I think Wade showed us that, especially with rest for the injuries, he'll be back. Bosh started out the game 1 for 8. He hit a couple big shots in the second quarter to blow the game open. But other than his rebounding, which was up to 8 and up from where it had been all series, which also isn't good when you're a near 7-footer, other than the rebounding, Bosh didn't really show anything in Game 7. So I think Chris Bosh is the X factor because, especially with not being able to rely on the bench necessarily for the Heat, for point production, I think Bosh will have to step up and have it be a legitimate big 3 performance by the Heat if they want to take the veteran Spurs team that is going to be well rested, which we know is important because of the age, and is not likely to come out tonight rusty because of the other rests like we've seen with other teams.
All right, another interesting thing when you look at the two teams, LeBron James's leadership skills, he somewhat called out the other two of the big 3, and we saw in the series that when he tried to do too many things by himself, it just wasn't going to work. So talk about LeBron's leadership, that obviously the best player on the floor on either side, the best player in the league, 4-time MVP, but the stuff in the locker room that he's been saying to his teammates about stepping up, how much will that affect his team, or will the other teammates maybe be a little tentative, too nervous because the best player is calling them out?
I think it's huge. I think when he calls them out, it's the best possible thing that could happen to the Heat. They're extremely well coached. I think Eric Spoelstra definitely does not get the credit that he deserves for keeping that team together, putting them on the right track, getting them to where they've gone to. However, having said that, as we've seen in different sports throughout the years, I think maybe the best example in the NBA is Kobe with the way he coaches the Lakers from the sideline and in games both. You need a fire to be lit under the team that can't always come from the coach. I think LeBron calling out the teammates, especially when he went to Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh before Game 7, after Game 6, and said, hey, I need you. I think that woke them up, and they heard, again, Bosh didn't have a good enough game. He struggled shooting the ball, but he was better and got more rebounds. And I think that it got into their heads, and they said, hey, we all came to Miami for one reason. We all took money to come here for took less money, to come here for one reason, and that was to win championships. We came here as the big 3. We had our press conference as the big 3. LeBron is the best in the world. It's time that we help him out. And I think that was visibly apparent in Game 7 after the pep talk. And we saw in the earlier game on the sidelines coming out of halftime in Game 5 when LeBron was swearing at his teammates when the Heat was down at halftime, and he was swearing, and he said, let's go, it's time to do this, and the Heat came back and won decisively. So I think that while there could be some tentativeness at first, and maybe there was in the last series, I don't think it's going to be that way this series. I think LeBron is going to distribute the ball. Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh both said, we need to be taking more shots. And then LeBron took fewer shots when he needed to so they could take more in that Game 7. He took over when he needed to. He took his open shots, but he was fine being the distributor. And we all know that he averaged 7 assists per game and is happy to do that. So while I think LeBron is going to need to score in the 25 to 30 point range, his assists are just as important, and that coupled with the pep talks will get the rest of the team going. If I'm Norris Cole and I've got swagger because I'm on the Heat and I was a first-round pick coming out of a no-name school, and now I've been in the league for a few years, and LeBron says I need to step it up, that's going to help me step up because LeBron cares, and I know that he's leading my team. Same thing with Ray Allen. We all know about Ray Allen's work ethic and how he stays in the court after the games to practice, stays on the court, how he's the first one in the gym. He's been there. He's a veteran. He doesn't need LeBron James to remind him to bring the intensity. But if he's not there mentally because his shot is off, he can hear from LeBron James and say, hey, Ray, you left the Celtics to win a championship. Let's do it. So I think that type of thing is where LeBron's leadership will come in and where it'll be a benefit as opposed to a detriment to the other Heat players.
All right, a few more minutes with you, Joe, before we let you go. A lot of people out there may think that this series won't be competitive because of the Spurs' age, because the Heat are the defending champions, because it's LeBron James. But you seem to be of the opinion that this will be a competitive series. So talk a bit about why you think this will be a close series in 2013.
Definitely. I think when you look at the side of the Miami Heat, they had the best record in basketball. They have the best player in the world in LeBron James. They've got a true team around them with the big three, the deep bench. They easily won the East, which no one questioned. They went on the amazing run that you spoke about, the 27-game winning streak, all of the different things, and they overcame the one true obstacle that they had the entire season, which was the Indiana Pacers. Now they get to the finals, and they're ready to repeat and justify everything positive that's been said about them.
All right.
On the other side, though, the Spurs have looked as good as they have in the past couple of years. They looked as impressive as any team in the playoffs. They rolled through the Memphis Grizzlies. They've got Greg Popovich. They've got the experience. They've got the big three, and they've got the athleticism. So while Miami has a lot of advantages, they don't necessarily have the X factors that the Spurs do. Indiana was able to use size to neutralize the Heat's advantage in a lot of areas. I think that the Spurs will use better guard play and athleticism to neutralize some of those same advantages. And then you've got Greg Popovich. You've got the players thinking that this might be Duncan's last chance. You've got the young players and still legitimate size in the front court for the Spurs who are ready to step up and show that they belong. And also the fact that the Spurs have been overlooked by everybody. I don't think the Miami Heat have overlooked the Spurs or are going to in this series, but I think the combination of all those things and everything we've seen from the Spurs in previous years, that will be enough to make it a competitive series. The two times they played during the regular season isn't a good sample size because famously Parker, Duncan, and Ginobili sat in the first one.
Right. Very funny story with that. That was the big situation where
Wade sat sort of to get back at the Spurs for sitting there 3 stars. So that's not a good sample size, but maybe it is an example of how the rest of the team plays together, because the Heat narrowly won when their players sat, and the Spurs narrowly won when their players sat. So maybe that shows how good of a matchup it is looking outside of each team's respective big three.
All right, so last question before we let you go. Let's get a prediction from you, Joe. Who is winning in the 2013 NBA Finals and in how many games?
I have the Miami Heat winning in 7 games. I think it's going to be a tough physical series. I think the big three for each team will come to play. I think when it comes down to it, though, the Heat and LeBron James, they've got the best player in the world. They're ready. They overcame a tough series. They've got those intangibles going for them. I think it's going to be a struggle. I think it'll go 7 games again, and it'll be one of the more exciting NBA finals we've had in recent years, but I've got it going to the Heat for that reason. The one thing I will say, if the Spurs do win, I think the Spurs will win it in 6 games. I think if the Spurs are able to come out and use a great game plan like they did against Memphis and are firing on all cylinders and able to neutralize the Heat's strengths, I think it won't be as good of a series, and they'll win in 6 games. But since I think that the Heat are too good, too young, athletic, talented compared to the Spurs, I think that they're going to win it, but it'll be a tough series. So I've got Heat in 7 as my official pick.
All right, so we have you down for Heat in 7 as your official pick. Everyone should check out OMG Poetry. They're on Facebook. Great stuff, Joe. Enjoy the NBA Finals. Enjoy Game 1 tonight. And thank you for being on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
Thanks, Ari. You too.
All right, be well. All right, Joe Robbins from OMG Poetry coming on and discussing the NBA Finals. We're going to take a commercial break, and on the other side is our Philadelphia correspondent, Ari Bluestein. Ari will have a lot to brag about as his predictions were just about spot on for the conference finals the previous round. So let's take a break, and Ari Bluestein is on the other side. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook, Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio, wrapping up in our final segment. We've had just a great show so far. So many people to thank already, but we'll thank everybody at the end. Right now, the theme is the NBA Finals. It is set to start tonight. Game 1 of the 2013 Summer Classic. They call the World Series the Fall Classic, so I guess we can call the NBA Finals the Summer Classic. That sets tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, so that is, if I do my math correctly, 4 in the morning, about 2.5 hours from now. So that's the NBA Finals, Miami Heat versus the San Antonio Spurs. A lot of people thought the Spurs wouldn't be there. And discuss the NBA Finals more in great detail is our Philadelphia insider, Ari Bluestein. Ari Bluestein, welcome back to Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
Oh, I'm very excited to be on with the 76ers in the NBA. Oh, wait, no, never mind. The Sixers aren't in it. But thanks for having me on anyway.
I think it's been 12 years since they were in it last, but those are the days, those are the memories. But before we get to the NBA Finals, we have to give you congratulations on your picks. You had the Heat in 7. That's what happened. You had the Spurs in 5. It was a sweep. You were 1 game off. But first of all, congratulations to you on your predictions. Basically spot on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And, of course, that's really what counts at the end of the day is the admiration and the respect of fellow colleagues when it comes to your picks. Let's analyze it. How did you know so well that the Heat were going to beat the Pacers in 7? I did not respect the Pacers so much. You saw that. What did the Pacers do so effectively against the Heat to take them to 7 games?
Well, they matched up size-wise, and also they're very well-coached and a good defensive team. You take a look, the factor was Roy Hibbert, who really kind of became an emerging star in the series.
The Heat didn't really have anybody to defend him in the post, and the Heat never had to face a center like him in terms of driving inside the lane with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, and we saw that same effect on Dwayne Wade the entire series because he didn't really show up until Game 7. I mean, Dwayne Wade was just not good during the whole series, and Chris Bosh, same thing, very inconsistent, and that was a result of Roy Hibbert as well as David West being yellow, and I thought Paul George was also a very good player in the series, and he is a rising star, and he can make plays. And, of course, you have George Hill, who comes from the Spurs. He was traded to the Pacers for Kawhi Leonard back a couple of years ago, or last year, and a very capable point guard. And obviously, Coach Vogel did a tremendous job. He's from here on the East Coast in the United States, from Wildwood, New Jersey, which is my short point of choice usually when I was growing up. I was only a couple hours away from Philly. So shout out to a local guy here. And I just thought they were a complete team and matched up pretty well with Miami. Ultimately, I did feel Miami would win the series, and obviously we saw in Game 7 the better team won. LeBron just took over and did not let the Pacers win, but I knew the Pacers were going to be a tough matchup for Miami.
All right, folks, we are having a little bit of technical difficulties. Ari, with your phone line, we will try to bear through. But just if you're in a building or somewhere under, try to get to the clear spot so we hear you clearly. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup, the Spurs and their age, because this is talked about time and time again. Tim Duncan, 37 years old, and they were in the finals 6 years ago. They seemed like an old team then. Talk about the age. Are the Spurs just somehow, some way, able to use the age as an advantage because they play smarter? Maybe they don't have the physical talent, but they play smarter, higher basketball IQ, have the experience. So talk about how they use age to their advantage.
Well, first off, can you hear me better right now?
It's still a little bit off, but go ahead and speak, and we'll just try to bear through, and we'll keep our audience posted on. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that if you take a look at the matchup, obviously you have the experience against the superstars, and I think that their headline on ESPN.com saying fast versus present. So obviously you have the experience and also the age on the Spurs side, but the Heat, they're not rookies coming into this thing. These guys have, been around for a while. LeBron James will be in the NBA Finals for now. I believe it's a split times. Wade has won twice now, and Chris Bosh was kind of a newbie on the block, but obviously he has a ton of playoff experience from the last 3 seasons that he's been on Miami. So I think the Spurs do have the experience advantage. I think they play better team basketball, but obviously the talent goes to Miami with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Obviously, Duncan is a phenomenal Hall of Fame caliber player. Tony Parker had an MVP that season, a phenomenal point guard. As mentioned earlier, a great guy too, and the Spurs have a lot of great role players, and do the Miami Heat. So I think it's really a great matchup, and it's truly a matchup of the two best teams in the NBA this year.
All right, now in this series, we're probably going to see a lot of Leonard on LeBron James. Do you think, if you're Greg Popovich, do you try to mix things up? The Pacers did a lot of mixing up with defending LeBron James to show him some different looks, throw him a little bit off balance. Would you do the same type of thing if you're the Spurs, or would you just have Leonard on LeBron James throughout the series?
I think it depends on Leonard's effectiveness. One of the biggest things in these types of series is the adjustments that he makes. And if Leonard is going to be on LeBron, and LeBron put up 35 tonight, well, I don't think you'll see Leonard on LeBron anymore. I think you'll see a different matchup. Obviously, it's going to be up to Kawhi Leonard and the young player that he is to step up and defend LeBron James, because if you look at the way the Spurs are, really Leonard is the only one that can match size-wise and athleticism-wise with LeBron James. I mean, Leonard goes about 6'7", I think, and he's very strong, and he kind of played a combo forward in college at San Diego State. He played the 3 and the 4, and now he's a 4-out 3 in the NBA. So it's a tough task for him, but he is a great defender, a very knowledgeable player, comes from college where he learned under Steve Fisher, the great legendary college basketball coach. And I think we'll see Leonard can hang with LeBron tonight if he can. You might see more of a team approach, or maybe you'll go with a big guy on LeBron, maybe like a Thiago Splitter type of guy. I mean, maybe you go smaller with a more physical, stronger guard like a Danny Green or a Gary Neal. So I don't know. We'll see. But, I'm interested to see that matchup, certainly.
All right, and I talked about this with Joe Robbins. I'll mention this to you as well. LeBron James called out his teammates very often in the Pacers series, telling the teammates they need to step up. Do you think that is going to energize them into the NBA Finals the way Jordan did with his Bulls teams when he tell the bench guys, other teammates, you got to step it up? Or will they be perhaps angry at him that he did it in kind of somewhat of a public way, or timid and maybe not make the shots that they need to make? So give us your thoughts on LeBron James chastising his teammates.
Well, I think you have to kind of divide up the team into two categories, the big three and everybody else. LeBron James is, in my opinion, obviously he's the best of the big three at this point, and probably was the best of the big three no matter what. He probably was a better overall player than Wade, but obviously Wade is not the player that he used to be. If LeBron does that again in the NBA Finals, Wade and Bosh may not like that because they are part of the big three and they're both superstars in their own right. If LeBron does that to everybody else, got the guys that are like Norris Cole, Mario Chalmers, Mike Miller, those type of players, Udonis Haslam, those type of players, I think they'll respond, especially because a lot of those guys are high-energy guys, and they will respond and take care of business on the court. But if a lot of people are saying the same thing, and I would agree, it's really up to Wade and Bosh. They're the ones to win the series. LeBron can't do it by himself. We saw that in Cleveland. He just can't. And the rest of the players like Chalmers, Cole, Miller, Haslam, those guys are solid, but they're not going to have to win your championship. It's got to be up to Wade and Bosh. And if they don't perform, then the Heat are going to lose. So it's all a matter of whether LeBron can get his message across without irritating Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh.
All right, and let's talk about that relationship, because in the next year, in a year from now, LeBron James will be able to opt out of his contract. There are rumors about him going back to Cleveland. Of course, they have Irving there. They have Coach Mike Brown, who LeBron James was coach under, obviously, in Cleveland. Cleveland just brought him back. Dwayne Wade is a very old 31. If they lose this series especially, what are the odds of LeBron James opting out and leaving Miami, whether to go to Cleveland or to go to somewhere else?
Well, it's going to be very interesting because I was talking with some colleagues about the Spurs Pacers Game 7, and if the Pacers had won, that would probably be the end of the big three. Obviously, the Heat went on to win, as I predicted, and they're in the NBA Finals. If the Heat do not beat the Spurs, it's going to be a very interesting offseason to see who opts out and who comes back. If Miami can win another one, I would say probably they're going to come back and try and do the three-peat, because that is something that is historic to win 3 in a row. I mean, obviously, we can win 2 in a row, but we don't really remember the ones that win 2 in a row. I mean, we do, but diehard fans like you and I are, like the Houston Rockets, like the Detroit Pistons, we remember those 2 in a row spots, but everybody knows that a three-peat, especially when the Chicago Bulls League were able to pull off. So I think that if the Heat win the NBA Finals, I think the big three stay together. If they lose, I think LeBron locks out. I don't know if we're going to Cleveland, but I'm not sure. I mean, they do have some good potential superstars there, like you mentioned, Kyrie Irving, but I think it really depends on what happens in the NBA Finals. And it's a very interesting storyline to add into the result of the NBA Finals here this year.
All right, and speaking of legacy and future, let's talk about the Spurs. Duncan, 37 years old, Parker, 31, Ginobili has a few years left. If they lose this NBA Finals, where does Duncan go? How many years does he have left on his contract, and how many years do you expect him to play in the NBA at this stage?
Yeah, I think he's got 1 or 2. I don't remember his exact contract, but they did in Philadelphia radio station today. They interviewed Rose, who was a member of the Spurs for the first 2 championships. Reigns back in 99, I believe it was 03 was the other one. He wasn't there for that, and he wanted to talk to Duncan. He feels that Duncan would probably stay for another year. He thinks that Duncan has a lot of basketball left, and Duncan agreed. But if the Spurs win the NBA Finals, then you also have that factor of going out on top. So again, another storyline that is contingent on the result of this NBA Finals. If the Spurs win, I think there is probably a 50-50 chance that Duncan retires. If the Spurs lose, I would certainly see Duncan come back, especially because he was a first-team All-NBA player at 37 years old. I mean, that's just phenomenal. I don't think a lot of people realize that type of accomplishment at that age. So he might have a little bit of basketball left in him.
All right, and Tim Duncan, I asked this with Joe. He is a bit of a quasi-center and power forward, but if he's listed as a power forward, and especially if they get the victory in these finals, where does he rank all-time? Joe thought top 5, perhaps top 2. In your eyes, where is he in all-time great power forwards?
Great question, and I would actually have to sit down and take a look at all the best power forwards, but without even looking, I would definitely agree top 5. I have to think of that. Who would be considered a power forward, who would be considered a center? Duncan could be a center at his side, that's for sure. I would definitely say top 5. I'll go with that. And obviously, you've got Carl Malone up there. Never won a title, but obviously he's one of the best. And you've also, of course, got some legendary guys like the LG Nailers of the world. You have some Wes Unseld comes to mind as well. So I would have to look at the numbers and break it down. But 5 championships, I would say that's certainly Carter Jr. in the top 5 power forwards of all time, and probably, honestly, top 25 overall players of all time as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at the 2 MVPs, the multiple defensive accomplishments, top all-NBA defensive teams, top all-NBA teams in general. So truly a pleasure to watch him play, even though he's taken out my sons several times. Let's go into X Factors. Joe thought from the Spurs end that Greg Popovich was an X Factor. I want to get your thoughts on who are the X Factors for both ball clubs heading into the 2013 NBA Finals.
I kind of touched on some of the role players. I think that if you take a look, kind of was talking about my point where I was saying that Roy Hibbert provided a problem for Indiana. You take a look at San Antonio, and you look at Thiago Splitter. He's kind of like the 5. He'll be in there most of the time. He's got some size, he's got some length, he's got some athletic ability, and he's kind of got a good clog up the middle, especially if Duncan has to be drawn out of the lane. If he's guarding Chris Bosh, and Bosh takes those mid-range type of jumpers, like 15 to 20-foot jumpers. So I think it'll be up to Thiago Splitter to try to clock away and not allow Wade to get in there and save it with LeBron James. So my number 1 X factor for the Spurs is Thiago Splitter. I would say certainly the other guys that have stepped up, like Kawhi Leonard, like Danny Green, like Gary Neal. You have those types of players as well. I think that you have to look at those. But I would say Splitter is number 1 just for the fact that you've got to be the man in the middle and man the glass and also stop LeBron James from going into the lane. Looking at Miami, I think, honestly, you look at Udonis Haslem. I think if you look at all the other role players for Miami, the only one that I feel like can be consistent and score in a number of ways is Udonis showing his age. Mike Miller, when he gets in the game, he makes some threes, but you never know when he's getting in the game. And Norris Cole is a solid player, David and Mario Chalmers, but I think Udonis Haslam, when he's in there, he definitely has a different, not only a different energy level, but also gives Miami another level of offense because he can shoot the mid-range jumper and he can get it over the inside and get a second chance opportunity. So I thought it was sort of an X-factor splitter in Miami that Udonis Haslam.
All right, you mentioned Ray Allen. Again, Ray Allen up there at age 37 years old. Could this be his last trip to the NBA Finals and his last year in the NBA? What do you think happens with Ray Allen?
Yeah, I think it's contingent on the result. I think if Miami wins it, Ray Allen will be done. I think he knows that he's coming to an end. He is one of the best shooters of all time, if not the best. And, if you watch him in the postseason, he's a career 92-something% free throw shooter, and he missed his share of free throws. And I think that he may realize, and no one else is realizing that, he's at the end of his career, at the end of his great career. So I'm sure he doesn't want to push it and tarnish his legacy at all. So I would lean towards Ray Allen is done no matter what. But if Miami wins, I think it's definitely over for Ray Allen. And what a great career for him. 2 NBA titles if he does win it this year. Plus, obviously, one of the best shooters of all time.
It's funny, bringing up the Spurs, there was some talk a couple of days ago, what if the Spurs had gotten Jason Kidd back in 2003 after the NBA Finals, and at that time Tony Parker was not established, 21 years old. They would have probably traded him, and Kidd would have stayed. Interesting enough, Kidd is retired a couple of days ago. What do you think the Spurs' life would have been like if they gotten Jason Kidd after the 2003 championship and Tony Parker was sent away with his packed bags?
I think they probably would have been in that same spot. I think obviously Tony Parker is a different player than Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd, early in his career, did some of the things that Tony Parker did. Obviously, Kidd is older now, and Parker still, people don't realize he's still pretty much in the prime of his career. People think he's old, but he came into this league as a young man and, started at an early age. He learned under Brin-Jonathan before Brin-Jonathan left San Antonio. So I think the only difference would have been is that the run might have ended sooner, and I'm not sure San Antonio would have gotten to the NBA Finals with a 37-year-old Jason Kidd as opposed to an MVP caliber point guard in Tony Parker. So I think that's really the only difference. In terms of them winning the 4 championships, well, we'll say 3 because the first one was before Tony Parker in '99. I would say pretty much would be the same. Greg Popovich has rotated a lot of different players who have come from nowhere. You look at this year's team, a guy like Gary Neal, a guy like Keanu Splitter. And then in the past year, you look at guys like Malik Rose, who I mentioned from Philadelphia, and Jared Jackson. So you look at those guys, and he just seems to find players that fit his system. So I have no doubt that no matter who was there, Greg Popovich would have made it work.
Yeah, I think that the Spurs lucked out. A lot of times in sports history, you see some of the best trades that happen were the ones that never happened, or some of the best signings were the ones that never happened. And Jason Kidd is not the best locker room guy. He has bounced around to a lot of different teams, and I can tell you from his time in Phoenix that he's still not liked by the Phoenix fans. So I think the Spurs got very lucky that they had Tony Parker, kept him, and did not get Jason Kidd. Again, going back to the NBA Finals, one of the things that you tend to notice, the comparisons between Michael Jordan, of course, and so on, getting title number 2. And I mentioned he gets title number 2. He's in the class title-wise with Isaiah Thomas. He's still behind Bird and Magic and so on. Pressure-wise, what is, you think, LeBron thinking? Earlier in the regular season, he seemed very carefree. He seemed that monkey was off his back and played just on a whole new level. Is the pressure now getting to him on the chance that he can win title number 2? If he loses, he's 1 for 4 in the NBA Finals. If he wins, he has 2 titles in a row. So where do you think LeBron's mental state is at?
Yeah, I know you compare the situation to Michael Jordan, that is different. I think Michael Jordan was not seen as the villain, whereas LeBron James is to an extent because of the way that he departed Cleveland, the way he stated how many championships they were going to win. I'm not sure if everybody knows what he said. So I think that, when you guarantee, not 4, not 5, you guarantee all these championships, and you can't get number 2 when it's a year where you may have the big obviously there was more pressure last year to win number one. And there was even more pressure the year before that when they lost in Dallas, which is one of the reasons they lost, is because they couldn't handle the pressure in Dallas. It was just their year and they were riding the wave. But I think there's certainly a lot of pressure. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, he won the title. So it was fresh in everybody's mind, like, okay, well, Russ finally won, and he won the Big Three. But, now they're looking, okay, let's see what else he can do. And the truly good teams in NBA history that stay together for a while win more than one. Look at the Spurs. They won 4. You look at the Jordan teams with the 2-3 teams. You look at Isaiah Thomas. You look at the Celtics of yore. You look at those teams, and they won multiple championships. So I think he's definitely feeling the pressure, especially because the Pacers, a team other than myself, obviously, that really didn't give them a lot of shot against the Big Three, almost took them down. And if Indiana finds a way to win Game 1 and they win Game 2, both in Miami, man, we might be talking about a Pacers Spurs final right now. So I think there is a lot of pressure on LeBron. And, I think these first 2 games in Miami are very important for the Heat to set tone, because if the Spurs win 1 and you go back to San Antonio for 3 and San Antonio has a chance to close it out on their own court, San Antonio could very well do that, and they might not even go back to Miami. So these first 2 games, I think, are very important for LeBron James and the Heat.
All right, so with that, let's get a prediction. Of course, your predictions the last round were superb. You had the Spurs in 5, they swept, and you had the Heat in 7. That is what happened. So you're on a roll right now with your predictions. What do you see happening in the 2013 NBA Finals?
Well, if my memory serves correctly, I believe I also made a final prediction saying that the Heat would beat the Spurs in 6. And I'm going to stay consistent. I'm going to say the Heat in 6. I'm going to say the Spurs are going to find a way to split Miami. But I think the Heat are going to win 1 game in San Antonio. I would say probably Game 4. And then, they're going to win 2 in San Antonio. So I think maybe Game 4 and Game 5, and then they'll close it out in Game 6. But I think it's going to be a close series. But I'm going to stick with my prediction of Heat in 6 and LeBron gets title number 2.
All right, so that is the prediction. Joe on earlier said the Heat in 7. Ari Bluestein saying the Heat in 6. And I'll make my prediction right now since Game 1 is only a few hours away. I'm going to say the Heat in 6 as well. I think they pull it out. I just think LeBron will take over when he has to. And I think he's gotten over the hump with the first title, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get done. But like I said, a tremendous amount of pressure. I know the Heat are the favorites, but there's definitely pressure on LeBron James and the Miami Heat Ball Club. All right, great to have you on. As always fun to have on our Philadelphia Insider. Enjoy the game tonight, and we will be in touch as always.
So you copied off of me there, Ari, right? Heat in 6 because I was perfect in the last round?
Well, you were almost perfect. You were a game off, but you're still doing pretty good, though.
Well, thanks for having me on, Ari. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Be well, Ari. Enjoy the game. We'll speak soon.
Thank you.
All right, Ari Bluestein, our Philadelphia Insider, saying the Miami Heat will win in 6 games. So we got the predictions. My prediction is Heat in 6. And not a disrespect to the Spurs. I think it'll be a competitive series. I don't think it's going to be a sweep or 5 games, anything like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it went 7. Heck, I wouldn't even be shocked. You know what? I would be shocked if the Spurs won the series. I really would, just because the Heat have been so dominant throughout the season. That stretch where they were 44-3, and LeBron wins the MVP almost unanimously, and it seemed too easy for him. I think in our minds, before the playoffs started, we already crowned the Miami Heat without forgetting they have to play the games to win. So that is part of it as well. And how many of us really had the Spurs going to the NBA Finals again? I think most of us had the Thunder. Before the season, some of us had the Lakers because of the cast of characters that were added with Steve Nash and Dwight Howard. Some out there had perhaps the Clippers. I mean, there was just so much talent in the West. I don't think we thought, at least most of us, at least I did not think the Spurs would go to the NBA Finals, but they proved us wrong, and they proved a lot of people wrong throughout this era of Duncan. You know, when Duncan and the Spurs won in 1999, many people thought they were not the best team in their conference. They thought the Lakers were a better team. But they've shocked and surprised us time and time again, and here they are back in the NBA Finals. This will be Duncan's 5th trip to the NBA Finals in his illustrious career. Again, the comparisons to Shaq, if you want to make them, Shaq made 6 trips to the NBA Finals. He lost twice, once in 1995 as a member of the Magic to the Houston Rockets, and in 2004 as a member of the Lakers to the Detroit Pistons. And the 4 other times he won. Duncan has a chance to get one more title than Shaq, and they were very competitive throughout their career. Shaq's been retired for a few years now, but back in the early rivalries from 1999 to 2004, Lakers and Spurs, they played against each other many times in the postseason, and they certainly obtained a rivalry. Here's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take a commercial break really quick, and then we'll wrap things up on the other side. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook, Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1, Kikia Hasman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on LL's not paid for the Flyer program. Earn double points in some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions to apply. When dialing within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years of coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248. Or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
All right, back here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. Just to thank everyone who came on and wrap things up. Our show started with legendary broadcaster Barry Tompkins to discuss Sugar Ray Leonard, Mike Tyson, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and, of course, Rocky Balboa versus Ivan Drago. We then moved on to discuss a gentleman from Go Fight TV, and just a great interview to discuss the Floyd Mayweather fight more in general. And that, of course, was Richard Quinones. Check out GFL.TV. Let's Go Fight Live again, GFL.TV. We then had on the director of Split Decision, Brin-Jonathan Butler, discuss some of Floyd's gambling habits. Floyd gambling $5.9 million on Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and, of course, Floyd's assault charge and the time he served for beating up his girlfriend right in front of his son, and, of course, Floyd's father, who shielded Floyd. He used Floyd to try to get not shot himself. It was really sad and pathetic. We then went on to discuss the NBA Finals with Joe Robbins, who likes the Miami Heat in 7 games. And our final segment was with Ari Bluestein, who likes the Miami Heat in 6 games. I like the Miami Heat in 6 games as well. Stay tuned on Israel Sports Radio for a lot of great, great things and a lot of great, great stuff. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.